Welcome back to the home studio, and welcome to episode 108 of the Stevie Richards Show, where James Romero, my co-host, I'll give it to you in just a second, was telling me the Elton John line because I was going to introduce myself as Stevie Richards, host of the Stevie. My God, it sounds like a Stephanie McMahon written promo backstage now. My co-host, James Romero.
Yeah, the first attempt of the intro was, I am Stevie Richards, and then it kind of fell apart. And then,
Welcome to the Stevie
said,
Richards Show. I am
line.
Stevie Richards. And then I said, it was like, yeah, it was very much an Inception type opening. By the way, I'm growing my beard out in a hot summer here in Florida, which reminds me of the Randy Orton to Kofi Kingston. Stupid, stupid, stupid. But that leads to a question, James. Have you ever tried to grow a beard?
Yes.
How did that go?
No, I'm 39 years in so far, and it's going to kick in any day. I'm sure about it.
That was a big like critique of our critique of Mason Rook, which most of it was really balanced. But there was people like, you don't understand, man. Some people can't grow a beard.
Okay.
That's your complaint about the clip.
Yeah, was that it? All right. Do you think there's like a support group for people who can't grow beards that I'm unaware of?
I don't know. Facebook and social media seems to have it all. Most of it's bad, but maybe there is something in there for. I grew that goatee and mustache, and with the BWO, I started growing that while I still had the mullet before it all grew out. And finally it came in like that because I had the big mutton chops and everything completely out of date, even back in the 90s. And for some reason now, like the beard finally, it took me till probably about your age to really, and I still got patches that don't at 54, it's just whatever, but mostly because I got that dog biting a couple of Earth scars, so it kind of covers it up.
Yeah, no, some people just can't, which is annoying because my brother can, and my dad, and my uncle, but they're all bald. So look, the swings and roundabouts, brother, what can I tell you?
You know what's funny about that? My entire family always say, even though I'm a twin, I'm the milkman's kid, because everybody in my family is mostly way under 6 foot, very mesomorph type body types and everything. And yes, all the males in my family are bald. So like for you, I would say, yeah, I'd rather be like, I can't grow a beard rather than I can't actually grow hair.
What was I going to say? Oh, I'm going to go on something completely different, right? In 7 weeks, I'm going to be in Florida. Stevie and I are going to be we're going to be doing that. What would you prefer as the handshake? Would you prefer Hogan and Savage, or would you prefer Arnold Schwarzenegger and
Carl
Apollo
Weathers.
Creed? Yeah, Carl Weathers. You son of a bitch.
Yeah, I would say it's the mega bottom feeders handshake. There we go, right there.
Do we have to crawl up from the floor and then do it? Basically,
we
invent our own
on the
bottom
floor
feeders.
doing handshakes. That's what.
Yeah, your back and my knee were like, ugh.
It's like trying to figure out who's going to win like a match versus with myself and Dreamer, or myself and Val Venis. We're going to talk about him later, coming out of retirement. But yeah, it's like you can't. Your brain will explode to see who will win and who will lose this match. You're thinking just knock each other out on the lockup and call it a draw.
Dude, well, I told Dutch this, and I thought it was a good thing when him and Ric Flair were beefing one of the many times. I don't know, and I said you need to settle it in the ring and have a first man standing match.
Did he
start on the floor, and whoever gets up first wins? Oh yeah,
yeah.
Of course he did.
That's actually not in the news. I was following your thing that now, I thought this would have been a natural fit. We can talk about it as not a news segment, but I would have thought, how many years were we doing this show where I said, why isn't Ric Flair endorsing alcohol? And here we are, finally.
Here we are. Well, I mean, he's endorsed it privately, I'm sure, for many, many decades, but now he's doing it publicly.
How did he sneak onto the boat? That's what it looked like. It looked like he snuck onto the boat.
He looked like he was walking down the gangway, and he just ended up on the boat. And now he's just stood there frozen, not knowing what to do.
Like there was some other party going on that he just crashed. And somebody even said that he looked like nails on the boat wearing the orange jumpsuit.
Right, so you like a bit of filmography and so do I. It's like they've spent all that money on the boat and the models and stuff like that, and then they film it on someone's phone. It was a shockingly amateur production. Like, if you're going to spend all that money, to, get Ric Flair's IP and use his face and his name and everything for whatever it might be, you cannot then skimp on the social media content and the advertising afterwards. And they skimped on the worst bit.
Well, they didn't skimp on the AI when they poured the drink.
Dude, that was Ric Flair's urine. I'm telling you. Like it's probably just.
Well, he needs to go in the hospital. His kidneys
content.
are shutting down. You need to stop when it turns that color. But I thought it was AI.
Maybe it was, but I
There's
just thought
had a strange filter to it that AI does with it. Everything was so perfect with the pour, and it just. I think it was AI.
It probably was. I don't know. It just no. I don't think it was, because if you look very closely at the drinks pouring, that once again didn't look like anyone was pouring a drink. It looks like Ric Flair was taking a whiz in the glass. Was that if you look very closely, when the pouring stops, the pouring actually continues in the next glass for like one drop, because they didn't get a clean shot of it and they never bothered refilming it.
Oh, I thought that after it got done pouring, you heard a sigh off camera, like relief.
You probably just heard Ric Flair's body hit the floor and go, boom. I'm done for the day.
Jump in the shark episode, right?
Hello, everybody. Right, let's do the intro then. I've got a channel, James Romero. Stevie has got many channels, including the fitness channel, and he's doing many collaborations with Chase Brogan on his channel with tech reviews and tips and that kind of thing, and also some gaming content, especially with the N64 mods of No Mercy and WrestleMania and whatnot. What was it Born to Be Wired, or was it the other one? Which one's the
House
latest
Party
one?
Remix, I believe.
House Party Remix.
But there's tons.
Have you done
of
the
them
Legends
out there.
one?
No, I mean, there's tons of ones out there that we can explore. So Chase is bringing me up to speed on that. I got my Steam Deck OLED, and supposedly I can put those mods into the emulators, and it would just put the skin over No Mercy or whatever's on the Steam Deck. It's quite interesting. It's like weird how you dive so deep into the stuff, and we're both passionate about production and technology and enjoy it. But there's a whole nother niche that I didn't even know existed with these mods. It's crazy. And it really is the ification, if you know what I mean, of modern stuff. So everybody's going back to retro. Like you said, the right to repair now. It seems like it's just coming full circle again.
Stevie is alluding to the show before the show on the Patreon that we do every single week, where we sometimes talk about wrestling, we sometimes don't. We talk about kind of whatever's on our minds, I guess, that week. So it's kind of its own podcast on its own. There's also of course, Monday morning watch-alongs, which this Monday coming is going to be the 3 worst segments of 2026, and they all happened in within 2 days of each other. The Jacques Rougeau thing, the AEW Redemption buy-in, the Mick Foley bow-wowing thing. We're going to be talking about that on the show as well, don't you worry. And also the entire Dan Hausen Joe Hendry segment, which went on for what kind of measurement of time could we use rather than years? Or it felt
well, definitely not parsecs, because it's a pretty long one. I would say maybe, I don't know. I think it's still going. Anyway. I think it's still going on. I think we'll get to it. You don't know what to think.
I don't know what to think of it. It's like, how can AEW and WWE like out bad segmenting each other this past weekend?
Let's balance this out. I always use the term TNA is going to TNA. With Danhausen, WWE is going to WWE, and WWE did the WWE-ish, the most WWE-ish thing on Raw in real time. And you know what it was like? It was, well, let's say it later, but
it's coming soon.
They used the Simpsons reference. It was like you could tell exactly the moment when his heart broke. Right?
I just it just kept on going, man. And that still wasn't the worst segment of the week. So there's Patreon as well. What did we watch this past Monday?
You told me to roll a grenade in the room and walk away and live my life for the rest of the week.
That's not the point. And now this is just becoming like a test of memory.
Now you just see, but did you know? You're going to know because you're searching for it. You weren't even on camera doing it.
That's not true, but it's Samoa Joe and Necro Butcher. I remembered it very, very well.
People did comment on that, saying it was a very interesting watch along.
Good. There's also the cameo as well, the Stevie Richards show cameo. I usually leave the Patreon to last, but Stevie Richards cameo, 5 stars across the board, unlike Ric Flair, because he doesn't overcharge you ridiculously, and he gives you way more than your money's worth for every single cameo. And then I say to Stevie, how are the cameos going? Yeah, kind of slowing down a bit. I'm only doing 4 today, or whatever it might be. You do yourself down, say, I'm not getting too many, and then it turns out you've done like 30 in a week.
It's awesome. Yeah, we don't get quite that. That would be an amazing blessing, but it still is. And it's great to be able to, talk to these fans one way or the other. There's people that actually like are really out there, like watching the show and saying that, like, I don't know how, but it's awesome to hear. Like, it inspired me to kind of go out there. Even people that, like, when we talked about fitness last week on the pre-show, are like, yeah, I'm doing this, and good to see people getting involved and wanting to interact with outside. Wrestling is literally maybe 10 to 15% of the cameo requests I get. Everything else is fitness, even production technology, and you know how happy I'm to share things about that.
We're going to go straight into this. So this is actually going to be, the Jump the Shark episode. Hopefully not for us, but for some other stuff with all these terrible segments. And we're going to talk a lot of news in the run-up to SummerSlam as well. And before we do, this was something I brought to your attention a couple of weeks ago, Stevie. There's been some clips going out there with Luke Gallows doing seminars, right? And the stuff that he is telling people is just so... You wouldn't even think about it as a young wrestler as far as how it would affect your career afterwards. But it's like really, really deep, intelligent analysis of what to do and what not to do in pro wrestling, especially before you have signed with a major company. And he's talking about essentially a great lesson in knowing your worth. And knowing your worth, Stevie, is something that I guess you've mentioned on the show before. You said, in your younger years, you kind of struggled with the whole thing, or, maybe you're like too much of a people pleaser. Would that be fair to say back in the day? And you want to be seen everywhere, of course. You want to, because you never know, your next gig could be the gig that lands you something bigger afterwards. So you need to have your face out there as much as you can. But before we get to what Luke Gallows said, do you want to give us like a basic overview of, I guess, life lessons you've learned in the similar vein?
Yeah, I'm still learning these life lessons, even at 54, by the way. It never stops. But yeah, I'm very interested to see this. We talked about it a couple times, and the theme of it I know very well from both sides of this, especially the side of not quite knowing my worth, not quite taking the right chances and believing myself and standing out to succeed or fail on my own. I, obviously, throughout my wrestling career, I've been put in those positions of succeed or fail, especially in ECW. That was the beauty of working for that company and working for Paul, that hey, we could do that. And that was the way to actually get better as workers and actually start to realize you have worth as a talent. So it was really tough for me because Raven taught me some of the best things about getting the opportunities, being present, being available, being that utility worker. And back then when we worked the indies during ECW, it was really, really a place where if you did ask for a little bit less as far as your fee to work, and Raven and I, most times were a package deal to team up or me be out there with him as a second. But looking at that, it did pay off back in the 90s. Raven and I were working 3 to 4 days a week, sometimes, like they say, twice on Sunday, going from one to the other. And we were doing those things, and it was working out because it translated back then. More shows, more experience, which is what I really needed back then, was more reps, more experience, and working with him was awesome and learning. But at the same time, having the opportunity to make that money as a base, which would be a little bit less, say, for an indie shot. But then the merch and the Polaroids, that's all we are, to get Polaroids in the ring at intermission, we more than made up for that. And that sometimes we'd get even a signing during the afternoon or something, and it would really play into volume as far as bookings and money. But then as time went on, and I guess it's a cat and mouse game, right, James, where the promoters and the talents are playing the cat and mouse game to see, all right, I'm gonna pump you up, but I want to see if I can get you for very little. That's the promoter way of doing it. You're the best. You're such a legend. You deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. You're the best thing. And every time I watch you on TV, and then you go, okay, great, here's my fee. Oh, wait a minute, brother, you haven't been on TV in 2 years. Then it flips over to that. So it's an incredibly stressful tightrope to walk. And I was taking advantage of, well, pretty much my whole career, but that's okay because the opportunity to do these things and perform. But even after TNA, ROH, all that stuff, and strictly being on the indies, the pattern with these promoters would be, at least with me, oh, this guy canceled. I only have a week or two to promote the show. Can you come in for less money this time? And next time I'll pay you the full fee and I promise you like 3 to 4 bookings. 9 times out of 10, I would take it and be like, well, it's work. I get that. It worked for me back when Raven and I were working. And the dude, it would be the same promoter, by the way, in North Carolina. He would call 3 months later after that and hit me with the same exact BS, to the point where my wife said to me, literally exactly what Luke Gallows said in this seminar: know your worth. And that's kind of like a lot of the cameos too, of it's beautiful to do that and talk to these people to tell them, know your worth. You got to work hard. You got to get better. You got to be accountable, but you have to know your worth, because people out there are always looking to get one over on you. And in the wrestling business, that's actually exactly the whole business. People just trying to cut throats, stab backs, get over on each other. And especially we're looking at, let's put this in more of a present context, and I'll turn it over to you. We just talked about for how many weeks with WWE and TKO cutting people their guarantees by 50%. And we see people that said no, that were more prominent. And then the ones that said yes, that we're speculating about, where's that leave them in next contract? Are they now worth 50% less permanently in that? It's a very interesting thing to observe.
Let's listen to Luke Gallows say, and this is specifically about Japan.
I would tell a lot of you guys this. Really think about where you're going to fly yourself for free, because people do that and it messes it up for other people along the line. I remember in Japan seeing all the guys flying themselves over to say they wrestled in Japan. They had no equity in Japan because they did that. They were just the person who flew themselves there for free, wrestled for free, or $20 or $100 or whatever. They lost their ass doing it. Now, I would tell you drive up and down the coast. That's part of it. But as far as flying yourself for free for somewhere that's bigger and established, I wouldn't do that, because you cheapen your value, and it kind of cheapens it for everybody that's at the same level at that time. Because if as a promoter, if I know I don't have to pay and you're going to fly yourself and I want you on the show, I go, great. That's how promoters think, But if I really, really want you, then I buy that flight,
So that's something that I guess not that many people, when they're young and getting into the wrestling business, would even consider. It's like, if you kind of cheapen yourself once, not only do you cheapen yourself maybe for other promoters in the future, but you kind of affect other people around you as well.
Yeah, you definitely do, because then that person, that promoter, he or she may book you a bunch, but it's always going to be for free, or I'm going to throw you like $25, maybe 50, and you're going to feel like you won the lottery because you were getting nothing or scraps and flying yourself in. Now, he made an interesting comment about drive yourself up and down the coast, but there's still, now on the other side of it, there's still a limit to that. Because I know a lot of people that drove like 700, 800 miles to a show, and literally the promoter left with the cash box and left everybody there, and that person promised, but you've seen that throughout the years of covering wrestling stories, especially on the independents, about the promoter over-promising everything, but then the house is light, brother, and somehow, there was one where Donovan Morgan was there, and they literally down, I don't know if it was Oklahoma or it was somewhere around that area, literally had to stop the promoter. There's people standing in the doorway of the building, because the promoter tried to leave, and he's like, oh, I got to go to the ATM and get money, but he had the cash box under his arm. And he was ready to disappear. And then somebody went to the ATM with that guy. They couldn't get out of the money. He was like, I don't have, he literally lost thousands of dollars. But this promoter, from what I heard secondhand, was willing to leave a building full of people, wrestlers, vendors, whoever else, the building itself, just in a lurch, standing around. I've been in that spot where after the show, where did the promoter go? Where did the cash box go? And we're all and some people finding out that somehow the flights going home were canceled, or there's all these different things they pull. So I would say, even on driving, unless you're already going to Florida or one of these other places to try to make some money as you take a vacation or whatever, that's one thing. But at the same time, you need to, you get pigeonholed into that. I can speak more than anybody else that once you get that label on you of being agreeable, being cheap, being whatever, it's going to be almost impossible to escape that, if not totally impossible, because you literally have set the bar for what your worth is.
When did you wise up to this?
When I fully wised up to it is when my wife said, "Know your worth." And I don't know if 1,000 other people told me that in a different context, in a different situation. And maybe because I knew my time in the business was just about up on any level, because physically I was starting to feel my back, my neck, and other places. So like, I guess I was just ready to hear it finally. Like I wasn't, I heard it, but I was finally ready to listen and then act upon it, because I knew whatever it was going to be, I had to know my worth, maybe not in wrestling at that particular point because it was over, but I needed to know my worth, not for myself, but also for my family and the people I need to support in other fields. I didn't need to carry that, because trust me, it's not just wrestling. It's corporate America. It's working with Carney fitness brands, Carney tech brands, Carney gaming brands, Carney sponsors. Everybody is trying to get over on you. And it's a sucky thing to not have people want to positively collaborate and the rising tide lifts all ships type thing. That's not the way it works. But yeah, I do realize that in some ways in the future, if I'm going in outside categories, I'm going to need to pay my dues. I'm going to need to be agreed, but I need to balance that. And that's the part, that's the toughest part, James, in anything that we do. Where's the balance, the sweet spot, the Goldilocks zone, where you don't get accused? Here's the accusation. If you know your worth, what do you think the accusation from promoters and people who basically are guarding that matrix? What's going to be the biggest ad hominem attack on you that you can't escape?
You're difficult to work with.
Exactly. You got a bad attitude, right? Mm-hmm. You think awfully highly of yourself. All of those things. And somebody like, even some, I've seen promoters do this. Oh man, I can't book that guy again. Why not? Oh, dude, you don't even know what you don't even want to know what he did. Yeah, I actually do. No, it's just, but a lot of people hear that and be like, oh my God, he really did something bad. And just, it's a weird, like mass hypnosis type thing in wrestling. He looks so exasperated. He looks so exasperated when I explain these things. You know this.
I know this, but I don't know. Like, what percentage of promoters were bad for this? Actually, I've got two questions. What percentage of promoters were bad for this? And two, what percentage of wrestlers on the indies saw themselves get taken advantage of time after time because it was their dream and whatnot?
Oh, good Lord. I think we're near 100% on both ends of that. At particular points, obviously, the boys are going to get smartened up eventually, and things are going to... All right, we're going to talk about Jacques Rougeau later, and that's one of the worst things that we saw, and it was recovered. But Kevin Owens kind of speaks about that, too, when he was starting out and coming up in the business, the way Jacques Rougeau treated him, correct?
Yeah, so Kevin Owens' accusations were that Jacques wouldn't let him, when he was training him, do any other shows other than his own. And he was only holding shows once in a blue moon. They weren't frequent. So Kevin wasn't making any money. And then the accusation also from Kevin Owens was that he was kind of dangling the carrot of a WWE tryout in front of people and then would use that as, a bargaining chip for whatever it might be. And if you trying to take a percentage of people's wages for the rest of their careers, which is an old territory trope.
Roland Alexander always did that with the APW guys. That was beyond the mat. Remember Mike Modest and Tony Jones?
Yeah.
And if they get contracts, he gets a percentage for the rest of their career, basically in perpetuity.
Yeah, I'd say good luck with that. So that's never happening.
But here's the thing: weaponized hope. The dangling the carrot in front. And really, when you think about it, you have to actually admire a lot of people for willing to just get in there and do the show and get the reps and get
it's like the music industry. Isn't it just like the music industry? You finally get to cut an album, you finally get signed to whoever it is, and the vast majority find out that they're in debt to the studio before they even know it, because they'll give you a 50,000 something or other advance, let's say. Then you've got to record in the studio all that time. Then you've got to do a music video to promote it and whatnot. And before you know it, you're $100,000 in debt to the studio. And then you better hope that these albums sell. Because if they don't sell, then you're going to be even more in debt. You know, it seems like that kind of rather exploitative, you know, exploiting the hopes and dreams of people who really want to make it, and very few do.
I think what it comes down to, too, although Vince McMahon, WWE, even wrestling in general throughout the years, the major companies have provided and afforded a very, very generous lifestyle to certain people. They've really done that. But in essence, no matter what, whether you're working in corporate America, whether you're working in fast food, whether you're working any job, that person, that promoter, that owner of the company, that CEO, whatever, they're looking out for themselves and the company, not you. In other words, you're making money for them, not for yourself. The only way you can truly be independent with wrestling, it's hard because you got to get booked, you got to work. But in our category, think about it. We got a thing about WWE Radio coming up later on in the show. We enjoy being on our pirate ships because the freedom, I would rather make even a little less money, not much less, but to have the freedom to know that I don't have a ceiling with that. And all throughout 31 years in wrestling, there has always been a ceiling, and there's always been that inverse, that bizarre world, where the more experienced you are and the better you are and the longer with the company, guess what happens? Your pay goes down. But we volunteer to do that because guess why they can weaponize the hope for perpetuity? Because you want to be a star, because you always dreamed to be in WWE, and now it might be you dream to be in AEW, or you might have dreamed to go to Japan, so you're willing to fly yourself over because you know what they say? You know, when this is over, we'll send you the video, back then, the tape, the DVD, and you can use that and send that to WWE. Do you see how they can really, really manipulate you into anything? And really, there's some truth to the fact of, if you don't show up and you don't at least try and you don't get the exposure, then you have 0% chance usually of getting noticed. Do you see how it's such a minefield? God, I'm so happy not to be in it anymore.
Yeah, but you still have the occasional... how would I say this? Was it like
itch?
A year or
I don't
two
have
ago
the
when
itch.
you...
I don't have the itch.
No, not the
away.
itch, not the itch. I'm talking about, you still have that thing. I think you gave the example of when you talked about The Undertaker of one point or another, and there was still that thing inside you to think, God,
no, you're talking about being institutionalized.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't have that much anymore. I don't care. Maven and I had a conversation. We talk a lot, and this was a long time ago. This might have been like even in the first 6 months of us doing the show. So over, about 2 years ago. And I was just like, man, I'm being as fair and objective. We're just going back and forth. We always try to give ideas and take them. But he was like, I was like, how do you deal with it? You go signings, you go to the shows, and you see some of these people. He goes, number one, they don't pay my bills. They don't support my family. And they actually haven't in a very, very, very long time, if ever. And that little thing, just like my wife, in the right moment, the right context, with my mindset, ready to hear it, ready to listen, actively listen to it, it got through to me. I was like, yeah, and we give everybody as much grace as possible. They still hate it. I mean, lots of people out there can't grow beards. Didn't you know?
I read.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's do I ever get that way? I laugh about it now because it's like, dude, like 20, 30 years ago, you still have that in you? Get that? How can get that out of you? Use the Pulsetto. Use the vague nerve stimulator. That will be sponsored.
Maybe mentioning soon, yeah.
I have been using that a lot lately, and you know why.
Yes, I can understand exactly why. Let's get into the news, and let's get into the first segment of Jumping the Shark. We're obviously going to talk about Mick Foley.
One thing real quick, Luke Gallows,
yes,
thank you so much for saying that. And if there's a Luke Gallows seminar and that's the kind of education and guidance he's going to give you, sign up for Luke Gallows' seminar.
So we're going to get to the first Jumping the Shark segment. We will be talking about Mick Foley later. The Dan Hausen segment from Raw. I watched Raw this morning, and I was kind of still a bit bleary-eyed by the time this rolled around in the first hour. Or it's probably first half hour, so I'm constantly skipping all the commercials and the retroactive respectives on all these rivalries going into SummerSlam. It was Danhausen and Joe Hendry together at last, like Michael Ball and Alfie Bowe. I know you won't get the reference, and it was shocking. And now people were just saying, "Is this finally the segment where WWE have gone too far with Danhausen?" Now, one segment isn't exactly going to be a career breaker, or else we wouldn't have seen Danhausen beyond Elimination Chamber. But it reminded me of like that kind of Elimination Chamber, people just sitting there, wondering what the heck is going on. Although at this point, Danhausen and Joe Hendry have now been fully established on WWE TV, so they don't have that as an excuse as to why this crowd was dead for like the 8-minute segment that this went. Stevie, tell us what happened. Where do you think it went wrong?
I think it went wrong after that lyric solo, and they kept going after that. That's what we both agree on, right? And there was a point in that thing where it was like, okay, feel good, it's good. Oh no, all right, here comes the little people. Okay, this should be over. So, oh my, here come the Laker cheerleaders. This is not going to end anytime soon. Oh, I'm saying there's going to be a run-in. There's going to be time. Ryan Garcia is right there, and I didn't know who he was either. I was like, who's this NXT wrestler? I never heard of him. So, and I was like, oh, Ryan Garcia just went into the ring. He's gonna pick up the guitar. You can see it telegraphed, right? And I go, and somebody's going to interfere, probably Judgment Day. Oh, here it goes. Okay, this is 7-8 minutes that you should have did it. And then I said it's probably if Tony Garea made a cameo backstage as an agent for this segment, you go, hey, you say I believe and you say you're cursed. Let's make a song. And they did. And let me say this. This is not a Danhausen problem. It's not a Joe Hendry problem. Not anybody in the orbit of all this. This is WWE just saying, this is working, so please bend over a little bit, give us the top of your head. We have this big sledgehammer that Triple H just gave us, and we're going to beat you over the head with this until you absolutely hate it. And by the way, I just got a picture of the thumbnail for the episode of me jumping the shark as the Fonz from Happy Days. And you already had that in your mind, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. I had that entire segment in my mind.
No, I'm saying for our thumbnail for the
episode.
I
know that, but I'm thinking the entire Fonz thing on the. Oh my goodness me!
Can we recap? This is the off-camera thing, and I was like, let's watch the Danhausen segment for the Patreon watch along, and you were so resistant, and then
because I'd seen it, and you'd watched the highlights.
I watched 3 minutes, and I was like, you said there's 5 more minutes of this before this, and you're like, yes, sir. Yep, Jeff Farma.
I liken this, right? So when I was in high school first year, we had, I told you this, we had an assembly. The entire year had to stand in silence while like a religious hip hop trio local was did an entire concert in front of us to complete silence for like 10 minutes. It was the forced attendance concert thing. Right, and there've been concerts, but Ricky Starks did one recently where it was meant to be intentionally bad, but then it rolled into turn the television off bad. That was on NXT just before he went to the main roster. This was an entire song. They'd actually come up with a dance number and an entire song, and like the actual movements of the You Are Cursed, trying to get the fans involved with it, and nobody was doing it. And you could see the fans behind them; they weren't doing anything. And then there was a camera shot where I guess Ryan Garcia or the cheerleaders, wherever, when they're at the front, the camera's on the other side showing the other fans, and they weren't doing it either. Even though Joe Hendry and Danhausen were facing them. Was this? Did they kind of get any grace thinking, "Hey, this will be great," and then it just didn't work, or was the writing on the wall that this was just a bad idea from the off?
When I'm watching this show tune, I'm like, Vince is back, baby. Vince is back dancing in Gorilla and doing his, stand back. I thought this is a Vince McMahon special, isn't it? The show tunes, the whole pageantry of everything. And I was just watching this going, my God, this is absolutely tone deaf. And like I said, Joe Hendry, there's an interesting thing about the musical stuff in WWE. We were talking about Elias. We were talking about Who else was it? I already forgot.
Rick Boogs.
Rick Boogs. There's a certain presentation to that with Nakamura, with McAfee. I understand. And then we mentioned The Rock, but he didn't come out every single week and do it. But Joe Hendry has such a start, stop, start kind of put. He just gets inserted. Like they dust him off and bring him back to do a song, and that's about it. Like the last time was the Logan Paul get fired thing, remember? And then how many weeks was he gone after that?
Oh, people kept talking about, can you believe that they're having the Let's Get Logan Paul Fired song right after we fired 20-odd wrestlers? Some people were calling it tone deaf. I kind of just didn't really connect the two. I didn't think it was that big of a deal in that sense. Joe Hendry is, as you are right to say, so stop-start. You kind of see him, I guess, once every 3 weeks. Or once every 2 weeks. And then he's kind of out of mind again. And I think Joe Hendry, more than most, would really benefit from how Raw and SmackDown used to be. You'd have like 8-9 matches, plus backstage segments, etc., etc. So you didn't have to have everyone wrestle every week, but you saw them every week doing something. Joe Hendry's the kind of character where you could have him wrestle one week, do a backstage skit the next week, and then the guitar thing in the ring the next week, and kind of just like, he's got enough strings to his bow that he can keep it fresh constantly. But the way they do it now is, he's there 1 week, he's gone for 2. And then you just kind of forget he exists.
So what's the sweet spot there? Because you described
Book the shows better.
But,
the formats are so terrible.
I know. We need to put some kind of patch on for an advertiser. Will be on TV every week. That's the solution right there. Put the
sponsor
NASCAR
Joe Hendry.
thing,
He could be like Jimmy's Meat or whatever that Brock Lesnar one was.
Joe Pay. He should call himself Joe Pay Me, not Joe Hendry. How's that? When he turns heel. But here's the thing. Okay, what's the sweet spot? Joe Hendry, stop, start, stop, start. Danhausen, successful. So let's beat you over the head with him every single week. Danhausen could also benefit from maybe every other week being a part, and then the week he's off TV, it's social media, website, ESPN, all that stuff. It feels like this segment completely made everybody forget about the absolute unbelievable wave of popularity during the Knicks run in the playoffs. And Danhausen was like the most crossover from wrestling to mainstream that I can remember for a very, very long time. And everybody played along, but nobody played along with this.
I wrote down stuff here. So this segment had all the WWE sins rolled into one, right? So you had overexposure with Danhausen, weirdly underexposure with Joe Hendry in a sense, but that's by the by. Terrible forced comedy, crowd interaction where the crowd didn't interact, celebrity involvement forced upon them by TKO, and I will guarantee you every single penny I've got this was a TKO call, to have Ryan Garcia, forget the cheerleaders wherever they were from, the dancers, the Ryan Garcia thing, right? So he is facing Conor Benn. Now Conor Benn is which I always forget which one the boxer is and which one the politician. Tony Benn and Nigel Benn. I think the Dark Destroyer, Nigel Benn, was his dad. And he's just there. He's now just been inserted. They already showed him earlier in the episode in the crowd waving and having his belt, and he's part of Zuffa Boxing, which is part of the TKO family of different promotions of everything basically. Zuffa Boxing is dying on its arse already, and now they're really trying to plug it on WWE more and more every week. And here's the other thing. Ryan Garcia especially. So this is a TKO thing where he said we need a segment for this guy, and to look good at the end, which is fine. But Ryan Garcia is not that famous at all. Not that many people realize who he was in the crowd. And even worse, if you knew what kind of person he was, you wouldn't want him on your show anyway, because abuse of his ex-wife, expelled by the World Boxing Council for various racial slurs for a year, popped for PEDs, smashes up hotel rooms in fits of rage. He's just like an all-round nasty, unpredictable guy, apparently. But then, boxing doesn't have any morals, and I guess no one else does anymore.
Well, he found the right place to work,
yeah.
It seems. But I wanted to say this. Is there anybody in that crowd or watched that segment and survived until his turn with the guitar and the beatdown? Is anybody going to say, man, I really want to see that fight now. Man, that really makes me want to buy a boxing pay-per-view.
all I know is they overpaid Conor Benn like $15 million to get him away from like Matchroom Boxing and Eddie Hearn. So it just seems like an FU to a rival boxing outfit that's more established because, you know, Turkey likes that. And that's kind of it. It's just like you're just overpaying people for these non-marquee boxing matches, and then they're just trying to plug it on all the TKO stuff. It's like when they had Tyson Fury out on UFC Freedom 250, and then he came out and said nothing because he didn't actually commit to fighting Anthony Joshua, when I guess TKO really want that fight. It's all this weird inter-company.
What they're trying to do is recover the money and pay off the debts, as you said before, and just shove all this down your throat, get a bunch of sponsors, cut the pay by half, do all these things. They are such a bipolar company in a lot of ways. It's many splits of a personality, multiple personality disorder. What's the identity of this company besides to just put some Slim Jim logos on tables and like cut the pay and let's get the stockholders, which is the next story about the WWE stock.
Well, we'll get to that in a second. But WWE more and more, especially with the Knicks on Saturday night's main event last week, the week before, as we record this, it just feels like a vehicle to promote TKO as a larger entity. Like everything's a vehicle to promote everything else, and like this whole crossover thing is like. Is kind of just exhausting and kind of infecting the storylines quite a lot as well. And also because they were doing this is the go home Raw for SummerSlam. I just want to tell you the card: Alpha Academy versus The Vision, Rusev versus Javon Evans, Rey Mysterio, Ethan Page, Sol Ruca, Raquel Rodriguez. That's it. And that was the main event, Sol Ruca and Rodriguez, as well. It's like the actual shows have like so little meat to them, which is my biggest complaint. They're full of commercials because it's SummerSlam coming up soon. It's full of recaps, and then. Of the talking segments, of which there were three main ones, Brock Lesnar over Femi, the Danhausen, Joe Hendry, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, at least they cut down the intro for Roman Reigns and put that in the commercials for once. But it's like, man, there is so little meat on the bone. And then one of the three major segments that were non-wrestling was just a TKO promotion crossover thing as well. It's like, there's so little for the wrestling fans here.
Are you still sticking with the opinion? Because I think I am, the more you describe this. Are they just trying to show off their portfolio, their assets, who they have and everything to still possibly facilitate that sale to Saudi Arabia, which I still contend WrestleMania 43, we possibly could get the announcement that Saudi is buying all this stuff.
If they have to do it, they would probably have to do it next year because they still want like 2-3 years on their Netflix deal in the bag.
But Saudi's talking about buying Netflix too. That was a rumor a few weeks ago.
Will they? I don't know.
Well,
I mean, the Paramount thing has been withheld. There's been several lawsuits, postponing hearings and whatnot to see if that can go through.
It just feels like everything's for sale, whether it's people, companies, assets, sponsors. It's just all transactional. There's no...
It's feeling like WWE's collateral damage to a point here.
Like the redheaded stepchild of all their assets?
It's not even that. I don't think it's a redheaded stepchild. I think they value it very much. I just think that they just see WWE as they do everything else, just a way to promote everything else they have in their portfolio.
Oh, absolutely. This is where it gets muddied. You figured in theory and on paper... all this crossover and bring, if we bring Ryan Garcia over, bring the Knicks over, Jelly Roll, all these different people, we're going to have everybody from every different category of entertainment and sports and everything, and they're all going to stick around. Isn't that kind of the pie in the sky theory? Now we have 5 billion WWE fans because they've all, golf and now Tom Brady and all this stuff. They're not sticking around. They're going to watch what they're going to watch, and then they're going to leave the building or they're going to shut it off. Don't do it, Tom Brady.
Hey, they years ago they tried to reason with themselves. I don't know who they were promoting themselves to. This is way before TKO. WWE said, we've done surveys, and it turns out so many millions, whether it's 14 or 40 or whatever it is, some ridiculous number, have an affinity for WWE. And this was at the time when they were getting like 2 million views, a week for Raw or whatever it was. And everyone was like, Well, what does affinity mean, and how do you monetize that? Or is affinity basically, I used to watch it as a kid? You know, they kind of come up with all these metrics to make themselves seem really, really, I guess, I don't know if it's more important to themselves or whatever it might be, but the real thing here is like, well, how many tickets do you sell? How many people are watching? How much merch is being sold? What are the reactions of the crowds, etc.? But then there's like, it's the same with UFC. It's the same with Power Slap. With Power Slap, they're like, oh yeah, well, you know, we don't get great views on television wherever, even if they are shown on television, but we got 1 billion views on social media. Okay. And? You know what I mean? Like, the really important metrics people are now ignoring to try and make themselves bigger in these ancillary, almost fake ways.
Isn't there another thing that keeps popping up, at least in my mind it does? Mark Shapiro. We want the over fans, Shug. Those are the fans we want. Are they talking about being marks for the type of marks they want to watch the show? Isn't it weird? Like, isn't it what you're saying? Their money is just as green as their money.
Is this the point where Danhausen jumps the shark? Because as you say, he's been on like every single show. He's part of all the stories. Someone said this to me. I mean, he sells a ton of merchandise, of course, and you know WWE has made their money back on him 100 times over at this point, and he's been a rousing success. But someone pointed this out to me. He's like, well, when he's out there, he doesn't get any bigger cheers than quite a lot of the other wrestlers. But also, he's there, Raw and SmackDown and all the pay-per-views and the PLEs and Saturday Night's Main Event. He was on the poster and stuff. And you were saying he's getting so overexposed at this point and having him wrestle more and whatnot. Is this the jump the shark moment here, or is this just a blip?
I think it's just a blip because if any character in wrestling can survive this and actually poke fun at themselves for that, because Danhausen has done that about the Elimination Chamber. Mary So is so awesome. Everybody loved it. And he can recover by making fun of himself in the goofy spot that they put him in. Now, Joe Hendry, that's probably a bigger question of, has Joe Hendry and the musical numbers in the ring, which, by the way, they always seem to have a shelf life, don't they? They always seem to be like, okay, what now what? Elias was probably the most over one out of all of them, but they didn't know what to do with Elias. And they sure as heck don't know what to do with Joe Hendry, because they will be like, oh, we can do a musical segment, call up Joe Hendry, fly him in and do it, and then thanks. He's getting like the Jeff Jarrett treatment, meeting with Hogan and going back home.
Do you know I was just looking at the card as well. We'll move on in a second, but you know, every Raw seems to have some combination of Rusev and Javon Evans and Rey Mysterio and Ethan Page and a couple of others.
The round robin tournament going to SummerSlam type thing, right?
Yeah, it's constant at this point. But like, no one's got any. You know when it says round robin, it's round like that. It's not round like that. There's no upward mobility with this. It's just everyone just wrestles each other every single week. Ethan Page beat Rey as well.
Oh, that was such a stupid block of the 619.
Oh, with the apron.
The apron stopped him from. What are we doing here? Who came up with that?
Tony Garea.
Hey, I don't have anything. That was it. It's like the Smurfs now. Hey, oh, I know what he's saying. Like Rocky and Project Hail Mary. After a while, the tone and the inflection and the length of the hey, you know exactly. It's like a sentence. No, it's not.
Hey, he explained.
Hey, by the way, he's not too far from where you're going to be during our week in Florida. We can always bring him in.
I'll book a taxi for him. We'll get in. Right, let's move on to...
You're speaking his language now. A taxi.
Yeah. I'll get him. Yeah, just make your way over here, buddy.
Dude, I want to do a thing. If I get the Tesla, I want to do a thing where I pick Tony Gray up and literally have GoPros all throughout the Tesla and let full self-driving take us from where he's at to you and just film his reaction.
Right. So you want to do the Seinfeld thing then? You know, comedians getting cups of coffee that he ripped off from Robert Llewellyn, by the way. He completely ripped off that, that YouTube series or whatever he had going on. Completely ripped it off. Anyway, right, we've got to move on. WWE, Wall Street. I kind of like downgraded WWE expectations a little bit. I don't know how much we're going to talk about this really, but F4W Online, this is a recent write-up, a recent JP Morgan stock report is not expected to lead to any dramatic changes to WWE's leadership in the near future, but analysts from JP Morgan recently lowered their price target for TKO from $225 to $222, stating they'd become more cautious regarding the company due to weaker fan sentiment, among other reasons. The report also cited concerns regarding WWE's declining Raw viewership on Netflix and lower ticket demand for SummerSlam, writing, fan dissatisfaction for WWE is worth watching, but is not yet a structural problem. Premium live event viewing appears to be growing, although Raw ratings are trending down year on year, which they normally do. Here's the thing, LA, they had, I think, over 14,000 they claimed in the building for that one as well, and once again, that's the show they gave them. So the ticket thing is really kind of up and down in the sense for the weekly shows. Sometimes they'll do like 7,000, it's like the sky's falling, and then other times they'll do 14. It's really up and down at the moment. But with SummerSlam as well, that $25 ticket thing has really worked out. They've sold probably over 10,000 extra each night because of that promotion now. So at least that's worked. But what do you think of this whole JP Morgan also tracking fan sentiment, which I thought was the most interesting bit?
Yeah, that's a weird metric, isn't it? How's that really factor into the value of the company? That's something that I didn't see a whole lot out of most companies, especially on Wall Street, where they talk about this type of thing. I'd be more interested to see how that metric really, but the metric of the ticket prices, do you think that had anything to do with them downgrading them a little bit because they can see the ticket prices, the high ticket prices, all that stuff might now have finally jumped the shark, to stay with the theme of the show? Because they did get a good spike in ticket sales. And also, I think the most important thing that Wall Street's probably going to notice in the future, this is now setting a trend. They started with WrestleMania 42 with the temporary, what was it, midnight, the discount code to save a certain percentage off.
Winter. I still remember that. And that was from Allegiant Stadium's own Twitter that they then took down. They said it'll be up for 3 days and they took it down after 1.
Yeah. Winter is coming, but now winter is gone. It's like Vegas. It gets cold at night and the desert hits over. But do you see what I'm saying, though? Do you think there's correlation between the stock now, those ticket prices, and the spike in the, what was it, 8,000 each night, right? 8,000 tickets for each night after the $25, which is what we talked about. 10,000 tickets that spiked. 10,000 was $250,000. So you now have what, about $400,000, something like that. My math's bad, but for both nights, they got a good bump in the gate. And isn't that what you want to do? You want to fill the house up. You have the TV licensing deals. You have everything else, the merchandise, the sponsors. But now you get to actually make money, maybe not as much for greed, but at the same time, you have a full stadium, or hopefully full stadium. Isn't that worth the metrics of looking at, like, people are there, and the more people you have in the stadium, guess what they're going to do? They're going to buy merchandise. So you have another spillover of income. But I said, do you think now TKO and WWE, going back to you, James, do you think that they can ever try to push that envelope of ticket prices again? Or are we going to stick, or are they going to reevaluate the entire ticket price thing?
I think they're going to stick more to the SummerSlam pricing rather than the WrestleMania pricing and see how far they get. But I think they're doing the same thing with Raw and SmackDown as far as, lowering ticket prices for local markets. But once again, I'm looking. They get over 14,000 people in for Raw. So it's not all doom and gloom. There is a trend downwards, obviously, because they've just overpriced and they've pushed fans way too far. And also, you can argue that this SummerSlam, we'll get to in a minute, has been really treading water. There's one thing that's kind of exciting and a bit fresh in the main event scene there that we'll get to in a minute.
But it's still like a glorified TV episode because they all run together as 3-hour things. So it's all kind of the same. Even Saturday night's main event, around 90 minutes or so. What's special? Like I said, you said it earlier too. It's all running together. It was
together. 2 hours 20. I mean, they had to get the Knicks in and Roman Reigns, of course. But 2 hours 20, that was.
So we're right up there in PLE or Raw or SmackDown. But I'm looking at that, dude, if they even tried to do it, the fans, I think, if you don't offer affordable ticket prices or attractive ticket prices right off the bat, they're just going to wait. And you're going to have to do this for every single pay-per-view. What I was going to say was, are they going to stick to? Because I said it before, Disney, they were watching documentaries on Disney and they were talking about yield over income. They don't necessarily care about getting people back for the second, third, fourth, fifth vacation. What can we get to yield off of them off that one visit and squeeze them? And wrestling isn't wrestling's always been one of those pieces of entertainment and sports. Like when I was growing up, we'd go to a show and intermission, guess what they would do? Announce the main event for the next time they're coming back to Philly. And here's the tickets. They're available at the ticket window now during intermission. And you would see people rushing based off that main event for next month. I don't think they think that way anymore.
Funny you mentioned Disney. I saw this the other day claiming that I guess if you live in Florida or wherever it might be in the continental United States, it's cheaper for you. Maybe it is Florida. Let's say you live in Orlando. It's cheaper for you now with the prices for Disney. Is it Disney World in Florida? Or Disney?
Yeah, Disney World, Disneyland's in California.
Thank you. So Disney World in Florida, in Orlando, it's cheaper for you to fly to Japan and go to Disneyland Tokyo and then fly back than go to the one in Orlando. Because all these companies, and you know, the connection, Disney own ESPN, which now work with WWE, you know, it's this trickle down greed, basically. It seems like, you know, with all these huge companies and everyone's kind of copying those and trying to bleed everybody dry. And there's going to be the saturation point, which I think SummerSlam is the saturation point for this. And I think things will change, or, you know, be a little more manageable as far as prices go. But here's the other thing that I found interesting with this, is that WWE are more interested, this is how much money they make. They are way more interested in the optics of getting the stadium looking more full in Minnesota. Is it the US Bell Center? Am I right?
US Bank, I think.
Bank, I'm sorry, Bell Center somewhere else. US Bank Stadium. And they're more interested in the optics than making money, because they make so much money that this won't affect anything whatsoever for them. And I still think they'll paper the town the weekend of.
Yeah, I have no doubt they're going to try to fill a stadium, but isn't that what they're supposed to do? Offer a price that's really attractive. Like you said, you're always going to have the people, the green shirt guy, the ATV Karens that are going to buy the front row seats for whatever they're going to be. There's your club WWE people right there. But in essence, you want a full stadium because guess what you do? What did they do for like history of SummerSlam? Aren't they showing some of the full stadiums, the fans making noise? Warrior winning the air kind of. I just saw that match and it still gave me goosebumps. There's nothing here that gives me anything like that on a creative level, but a full stadium with people being very loud adds the energy not only for the wrestlers, for everybody around them in the stadium, but if you're watching at home, you're like, man, for $25, man, maybe I should have won. Isn't that kind of what they're working towards? And just like James said, just walk around town, go to your local bars, restaurants, maybe gyms or whatever, and see if they're papering the town.
Okay, next up. This has been in our little WSI chat groups. This has got to be one of our most the thing that like we're all kind of, I guess, collectively most interested in over this past week. And this is Sirius XM Pro Wrestling Nation 24/7 has rebranded as WWE. And now we were talking about this over a year ago when they created this channel as well. And we'll get to kind of our thoughts back at that point in a short while. But the headline news here is that this seems to come out quite out of nowhere, really. Although the signs were there. Thunder Rosa was being used less. Jonathan Coach was released about a month or so ago. And I looked through like the roster of who they had on. And Jonathan Coachman really seems to, as well as Thunder Rosa and maybe Tom Pestock, who's Baron Corbin, who's now back with WWE. They were kind of like the only non-WWE, like super affiliated or like really like pro WWE people out there, and they're all gone. Or they've gone back to WWE, now they've gone over to the other side. It was wrapped around Busted Open Radio, which is Dave LaGreca, and then he's got like a revolving set of co-hosts with Bully Ray, Mark Henry, Tommy Dreamer, and then other people occasionally like Nick Nemeth as well, which are all WWE affiliated, or at the time TNA affiliated as well, which is WWE affiliated. So now Is there really kind of that much difference in what is now WWE Radio as far as like pro WWE rhetoric, or is this just kind of like the final form? Is this like the full evolution of the Pokemon? Has it gone from a Squirtle to a Blastoise, and now it's what we always knew it was, but it's super pro WWE now?
Well, it was pro WWE before, according to a lot of people who had comments about it on your video that you talked about it. You have two different things going on. You have the people saying everything's going to change for the worse and it's going to be pure WWE propaganda. And then you got Dave LaGreca saying that his rants and nothing will change at all. So which is it going to be?
Oh, it's the first one, because over the
Well,
weekend...
yeah. I mean, there's a rhetorical question, I guess.
It was, you're right. Yeah, so it's the first one. So over the weekend, there was absolutely no mentions of, even though it's not WWE Radio until Monday, this Monday just gone, over the weekend, there were no mentions of AEW Redemption, even though it's happening that weekend. So now it seems that nothing is changing except the content within the shows, what you can and cannot say, no doubt what you can and cannot criticize WWE for, no doubt what you can talk about on WWE Radio, because I doubt they're ever going to mention Janelle Grant, for example. So essentially, it just becomes a homogenized, one more arm on a different broadcast media of the WWE message. Am I cynical in saying that, or is it just kind of obvious?
Well, I mean, the proof is going to be when it finally, I mean, as we record this, it's day 2 of the WWE Radio, the official WWE Radio. But everything you said is exactly what they were doing before they announced it was WWE Radio, just not officially. Now, officially, someone could pick up the phone and call Dave LaGreca or anybody else and say, cut that out, don't say that again, whatever. But it was actually kind of known. It was unspoken truth. If you speak this way about WWE, we will not have WWE people on your show. We will not have them you said it before. There's certain channels that might only have 50 or 100 subscribers and maybe get just as many views, but they have access to WWE wrestlers. They have access to Tony Khan because they are friendly YouTube channels to the promotions.
Yeah, in this first week, Busted Open has welcomed, I think, CM Punk. I think they're getting Triple H tomorrow as we record this, because we record this on a Tuesday. So the benefits, and this isn't for Busted Open Radio. WWE has not bought Busted Open Radio. They have bought the Sirius XM channel, which is a big difference. But Busted Open is continuing on it. So I guess, like, because Dave has been doing it for many, many years, so I understand his kind of, I guess, like, his big passion was to get on Sirius XM and, you know, kind of be treated more like a proper radio show. And
that's not easy to do.
Well. It's not easy to do. It's a big boon to him. And then a year later, the ownership changes. And then what do you do in that situation? Do you kind of walk the company line, continue on with your life's work in a sense? Or do you then take it away and try and be independent again? I see the dilemma with that.
Well, it's definitely something. I mean, if nobody's going to watch your show or listen to it and you don't have a platform to put it on or a big enough one in this regard, yeah, you got to see. And maybe Dave was very excited. He said nothing's going to change in that video that you played on your channel. But when I look at that, you have to just wait and see. What can Dave do? What can anybody do on Busted Open or any of these other shows that are kind of being imported into underneath WWE Radio, except let's see what happens. Maybe we'll all be surprised. I hope nothing but the best for Dave LaGreca, for Tommy, for Bubba, for Nick, whoever's on that Busted Open show. But we know the pattern recognition of WWE, of especially WWE, but wrestling promotions, and especially now you have TKO involved. So I just feel like it's going to be very, very controlled. It has to be. That's their end game anyway, is control and make sure to get their narrative out there and really do control it.
What is there are more benefits. So they get more content, they get more good guests, they get content as in like the radio, the podcasts on YouTube or whatever it might be. Because I was looking at Sirius, it was at the channel 156, I believe. And there was only like 6 hours of first run content in 24 hours. I checked on the Monday. That's what it was. And that included Stephanie McMahon's podcast as well, because they've just started inserting those. and they're kind of desperate for more first-run content. I don't know how it is with other SiriusXM channels. If that's kind of the deal, they just keep repeating like the main show that the channel's based around. Is that right?
I'm not sure. I mean, once again, are we talking about a subscription? Do you get to consume this content for free, or do you have to subscribe?
No.
Because SiriusXM is purely a subscription based.
Yeah. I think you have to pay at least $19 to maybe $26 a month. It's
So there's another subscription that WWE is trying to make. That was the main complaint off of one of our recent videos, was like 3 different streaming services just to watch the shows. Then the subscription for the PLEs. Now they have to do WWE and TKO if they want to get people to consume all this stuff on different platforms. Let's get into next about what happens to Undertaker's podcast on YouTube, Steph's, what happens on Spotify, what happens on iTunes. Is it strictly going to be?
You mentioned The Undertaker. Do you remember a few weeks ago he had Rey Mysterio on and he accidentally mentioned CMLL? An Undertaker was saying, what happened to who's the CMLL? This has only been around 100 years. You know what I mean? Like, you can't even mention the competition of like an ancillary investment promotion that you've got. That is how, and that is an official WWE podcast. It's the closest thing to WWE Radio, and they will be broadcasting. I appreciate the dilemma Dave is in, if he considers it a dilemma, by the way. But I mean, to say that nothing's going to change, everything's already changed, and it's only going to get worse. And then if you try and keep it how it was, and if you're going to go on some kind of rant or something like that, and it's a bit too... Because you can only talk about WWE and TNA and AAA now, apparently. So who are you going to rant against? If it's a WWE, you might get away with that once, but you won't get away for it long.
Well, you got Triple H and you got CM Punk, maybe not in that order this week. So are you going to ask the tough questions, or are you going to ask, like, do you prefer to be bald or have long hair? Which is a Triple H?
Yeah, you're going to get the Pete Rosenberg is what you're going to get. He was also on WWE Radio, by the way, along with the other guy who can't remember.
Okay, so let's examine the financials of this, or actually the metrics that are so muddy right now. But it is a subscription-based service. In order to see the content, unless you see a clip on YouTube or whatever, I guess they put up on YouTube. But to watch, say, Busted Open, now Undertaker's podcast, Stephanie's podcast, you have to pay to get that. So I would assume, are they taking it off iTunes? Are they taking it off Spotify? What's going to happen to the YouTube channel? Do you see how, like, what's it going to look like? Or is it going to be in all these places and you can consume it for free and enjoy the show? But there's a lot of stuff that doesn't seem like it's hashed out or it hasn't been communicated. My question, going back to the metrics, are there any numbers on what, say, Busted Open? Because Dave's truly a passionate wrestling fan, and he's very excited about this, I could tell. What is Busted Open doing as far as numbers, and what does WWE require as far as listeners, numbers, viewers, whatever?
Does it matter to them? But does it matter to them what?
So they just want to get the narrative and get their press release. These are press releases, not shows. You got to talk about the storylines. They're going to. I'm so relieved we're in the spot we're in, and I know you were going to ask a certain question that I laughed at before we started recording, but you have to wake up every morning now thinking, or after you're done the show, now you have to self-censor as you're doing it. Which, by the way, a trained eye can totally see when you're doing that. They may lose people over this.
Well, a lot of people
you said saturation point for the ticket prices. Sorry. Are we at an oversaturation point of the propaganda that they're trying to put out?
It's going to be tough. Well, I mean, you can escape it whichever way you want at this point. But the question that I'm going to ask you is, a year or so ago when this was first announced, and we all kind of did the eye roll, didn't we? For 2 reasons. One, it seemed very, very pro WWE. And someone else I didn't mention was like Natalia, also, Natty Neidhart also had a show. And, we love Natty on this show as well. But also she's signed by WWE. So you know what side her bread's going to be buttered on as well.
You got to feed those cats, man.
Yeah, look, and the cats don't... Well, cats do eat themselves, when desperate. But I was going to say they don't feed themselves, but maybe they do.
Well, they're not desperate in this house and in our house. We overfeed our cats, Natty, right?
But so you kind of knew you were getting 80% pro WWE, essentially on the channel already. And then we were talking to ourselves. It's like, isn't it weird how we never got brought up, considering that I think it's fair to say we're one of the bigger wrestling YouTube channels out there. And we always go on about, the broadcast quality and whatever, and we're really, really focused on that. And we both thought, isn't that weird that we never got any interest from them whatsoever? And what was your conclusion with that?
No, that was all you guys. You, as Hogan, that was all you guys, because I knew the answer. I thought this was the ultimate rhetorical question, because you're like, isn't it kind of funny? I go, no, I know exactly why, and I'm probably going to take a lot of the responsibility for that, because if you want to talk about being blacklisted, being a pariah or whatever, but feeling the best and the most freeing way that we can about it, dude, people say, oh, you want to go back, you'll go back, you're waiting for the call. No, I am not. I gotta tell you, I am not. Life has never been, you know what, I get scared straight at least once a week whenever I talk to somebody that's either currently in wrestling in one of these companies, got released in the past year. You probably know who that is, who we communicate with. He's got a real killer of a gimmick on the indies. So, or anytime I talk to other people that just is like they want an opportunity, but to me, it's just like they're never going to be, and I said it before, you're only going to get the opportunity that WWE thinks you're worth. They're not going to know your true value or true worth, as Luke Gallows told those kids at the seminar earlier in this episode. We don't even know what the full potential of what we have here, right, James? We don't know what the show is going to bring. All we know is there's always going to be room for improvement. And guess what we can do? We can implement any improvement, format change, anything we do. We can basically fix it, improve it, bring on the new thing, experiment, whatever it might be. We could do none of those things with WWE. As a matter of fact, we would probably have to have script up on the teleprompter with the talking points for the entire episode.
Well, I was thinking, like, if they were, you couldn't imagine if they were going to say to us, hey, we just want to sort of import the show once a week with no changes ever, and we'll pay you so-and-so each month, and you don't have to do any extra work. If they could have, like, but here's the thing, like only under those parameters, and like they put it in the contract that like we have complete creative control when we consider it. But
don't forget about the death clause. That's probably in there too.
The death clause as well, of course. But here's the real thing: is that I'm surprised they didn't ask us, but I'm not surprised, because I think by 1 year in, we'd established ourselves as people who are happy to talk good and bad fairly in our minds about every promotion out there. And before WWE obviously took it over, someone there, I think, had an eye on WWE. Or, this being the ultimate goal.
Well, I'm going to say right now, there's no way, even if it was in writing and they said you can talk about whatever you want, it's just basically going to be kind of like McAfee's on ESPN, but he owns the show and he can take it anywhere he wants, depending upon if the contract runs out. We know, and I know for a fact, at least, you're a lot better at this than me. You're a lot smarter with this business stuff. But I know for a fact that we will lose a good portion of the audience, because we will lose the exact independent identity. Whether we talk about whatever we want to, we're still under that WWE umbrella. So whether we do that, people are going to, like we're talking about Dave and Busted Open. Maybe the first time, maybe a week or two, but you're going to get the call. You're going to get the email. They're going to sit you down and talk to you and smarten you up, brother. No, to me, we have only a limited amount of time and energy to devote just to anything, right? But we devote a great deal to this show, our brands, and everything. So, and once again, I worked for WWE for almost 10 years. There was many opportunities that had nothing to do with WWE, and they squashed it, because you're here, you're ours. And that's it. And that never escaped me watching, even what they did to The Rock, letting his contract run out. It's not from top to bottom. They're always going to look out for themselves. And you can't serve two masters. we're certain, you know who our masters are? The audience. Because the audience right now, you really are the authority. We're not saying it like it's an opening in the Monday Night Raw. You're the authority. If you don't watch, if you don't interact, if you don't comment, if you don't subscribe, and if you don't watch for a certain amount of time, and of course, Patreon, merch, whatever, peanut shell shirts, I'm designing them. They are coming soon. I'm working on it.
They design
But
themselves, surely.
they do. They sell them.
Just me
But
with
we
a
got
monocle and a top
at least
hat.
20 requests. You're getting the whole deal. You're in a tux, tail, everything. So, but there's something to be said for, and I said it, I hate to repeat it again. I hoped and I prayed to God so much throughout 30 some years that when I finally got the opportunity to succeed or fail on my own, inside wrestling or outside, I was going to make the most out of it. If that happened, that would feel like 20 steps backwards for all of us. Because now we have to go think about all the red tape and all the approval, and then think about personal issues. I'm sure I'm not Hunter's favorite person. Do you think they would just, and I've witnessed that too, Vince paying people a ton of money just to bury them and prove a point? We're not going to be, I love having our own pirate ship, as Adam Kroll would say on his show all the time. So I never thought about that at all. I never wondered. I was never curious. And I sure as heck never had an inkling or a desire to go in that direction. So best of luck in your future endeavors, Dave LaCraca.
Right, we'll move on. Mick Foley, this is the other Jump the Shark segment. And it comes, okay, his explanation doesn't make any sense either. And I'll explain why in a bit, because there was something that I kind of, if you're really listening, you know, I think he's lying on the Instagram explanation. But in what turned out to be one of the creepiest segments in AEW history, Mick Foley is interviewing, for like 2 seconds, I guess, interviewing Lana Cross and Megan Bayne, the Divine Dominion, who are the AEW Tag Team Champions, the Women's Tag Champions, of course. Anyway, it's a 1 minute 50-second segment, and it goes from Mick interviewing them to them kind of offering Mick a seat. And he's going, oh, well, thank you, my joints are killing me. And it gets weird very, very, very quickly. And then something happens at the end. I'm sure everyone knows, but we'll build it up a slightly bit. So, Stevie, take us through what you saw from beginning to end until we get to the low light. Is that the word?
Yeah. Dude, I thought that segment was every bit as long as the Dan Hausen, Joe Henry segment. It didn't feel like 1:50. It felt like about a good 8 to 10 minutes long. And then at the end is very much the low light. It was just, I asked, I go, was this live, pal? And you go, of course, but it would be even worse if this was pre-taped and they still pushed it out. But I think it was part of the kickoff show, so it was definitely live. Maybe they should do tape promos from now on and just be safe and get the good take out of that. Basically, Mick sits down. I like the conversational thing in the beginning. Yeah, my joints are hurting. Thank you very much. And he's just trying to kind of, he's peeling back a little bit. He's not trying to take the spotlight away from him. And the girls have a great look. Megan Bayne, haven't seen her since she did that thing with Penelope Ford and all that stuff. And all the Thunder Rosa chair shot thing. For what I'm wrong, that's the last I saw her. So she got a great look. And the wrestler in me was laughing, going, she stole Rey Mysterio's headdress from WrestleMania 22 when he came out in Chicago.
I remember that. That was a triple threat match, Kurt and Randy, wasn't it?
And he won the title.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So really great look, great gimmick, characters, both very dominating looking women wrestlers. I even liked when he made the little Crush Girls reference, which I thought was the Jumping Bomb Angels. When they were like, have you ever seen a more dominant tag team? It's like, yeah, actually, the Crush Girls. And they're like, hey, but they didn't react and go, hey. They also missed an opportunity to put Mick and tell him to shut up. They just kind of went through it from there. And then, what was the catchphrase? Bow down?
So that is Megan Bayne's catchphrase. So she'd do, the powerbomb or whatever it is. Do you want to finish this? And, she would say, bow down. She tells Mick, bow down. Evidently, now this is the explanation. Okay, Instagram, from Mick himself. Quote, a slight misunderstanding. # Divine Dominion told me to bow down, not bow wow. My bad. My new favourite tag team, Divine Dominion, etc. And a and a load of tagging of people. I don't buy that for a very specific reason. But instead of bowing down, even though he's sat down, he starts barking, bow wow, instead. When did this get weird for you in the 21 seconds of barking that he does?
But the whole thing felt like a very tedious thing. I think that's why it's 1:50, but it feels a lot longer. In other words, this is where there's a bigger thing. Obviously there's the creepy factor with that, or the weird, awkward factor. But when I look at it and really look at the nuts and bolts of this backstage pre-tape or live pre-tape, live promo backstage. You, Megan Bain, and I, Stevie Richards, you, James Romero. But when I look at it, I'm like, Mick did leave some openings for them to have a character that was, in other words, they didn't seem as dominant, like as they said they were in that, in a regard, like when they said bow down and Mick's starting to bark, Megan Bain should have got down on one knee right in his ear and say, so you are just as deaf as you have concussions. I did not say bow wow. Although, you know what? That's not a bad idea. We want you to bark like a dog, so why don't you bow wow for us? Do you see what I mean? There's an opportunity for it to be taken off of Mick. He makes an honest mistake, and the heels seem like they're bullying him and embarrassing him. That's the way they didn't cover for Mick's mistake. They just let him bark like a dog and stood there. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah,
That's
got a theory.
Experience.
That wasn't a mistake. I'll tell you why. It's because he's going bow wow, rough, 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 bow wow. And then he starts saying bow down, bow wow. He heard bow down.
Yippee yay, yippee. What's that rap song? Bow wow, yippee yay.
Bow wow, wow, yippee yo, yippee yay.
Yeah.
I'll get with the program.
Should have just crip walked off the screen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, are you talking to Snoop Dogg? Bow wow,
yeah,
wow, yippee yo,
whatever that
yippee
song
Snoop Dogg
is,
in the
yeah.
mother loving house. Bow wow, wow, yippee yo, yippee yay. Yeah, of course.
No, don't get us. We don't need a content ID here.
No, that's fair enough. Well, me and Snoop, we sound
lyrics.
so alike. But yeah, okay.
It's like me and Stevie Ray. You know, the Vince mixing us up.
Brothers from another mother and father. He starts saying bow down. He heard bow down, and then I think on the spur of the moment, he thought it'd be funny that he misheard them and say bow wow. And I also think that Megan Bain and Lana Cross mix the legend, mix the kind of driving force here, that they are not going to kind of derail Mick's whatever the thing he's doing here. But I'm convinced, or fairly convinced, that he kind of just turned this without letting them know. Just, like he just got the idea in his head to just do it that second.
So basically what you're saying is these heels that are dominant want to bully everybody showed reverence and respect for the guy they were supposed to bully.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, if Mick did do the song and Crip walked off the camera, out of the camera, he would have saved it.
I'm trying to think of the rest of the lyrics to that song.
But even just like it started off so weird, making him sit down, and then they're not even looking at him in the eye. He's literally looking right at their belly buttons. It's like, what is going on here?
Dude, the creepiest bit is where Mick, and I pointed this out on the Patreon thing, is where Lana Cross is leaning down, and Mick is just like leering at her, going like that, and it's like, dude, is this the kind of thing you do off camera? Probably. But it's weird how Mick Foley always seems to insert himself into the.
Oh God! Don't use that. It's what a metaphor.
But he always seems to insert himself into the women's segments. Isn't that right? Over the course of over 20 years, I'm not saying that this is a theme with Mick, but it's definitely a theme with Mick.
Hey, at least when Bob Holly's like, "Give me the belt," as you would say, like that's the way you want to stay on point. The politic, you got to politic in the direction of that, but. It could have been saved to some regard, but I don't think that will make it outside of us talking about it and other people. I don't think it's going to make it on any like history of AEW recap. I'm sure WrestleCrap is going to cover this, or Botchamania is definitely going to cover this as, they're probably going to have Clifford the dog there with Mick bow wowing and barking and everything.
What are we What's Mick doing here? Because he turned up a couple of months ago. He did the really good MJF thing on the pre-show, and it was really appreciated. And people were saying, man, that's the best thing Mick's done in maybe 20 years, or at least a good long while as far as wrestling goes. He still got it. He could still, in his own way, help the company draw a bit of money rather than just being a presenter like Jeff Jarrett is now as well. Do you remember that he was going to, like Cody, finish his story and go for the world title? And then within 2 weeks, they pulled him off TV and he does the pre-show hosting. It's the same with Mick. Like, he disappeared for 2 months. He had his own ancillary comedy gigs and whatever signings I guess he had already booked in. So, and now this is, I guess, just what he's doing. He's gone from the MJF thing, which was a great start, to trying to come up with comedy on the spur of the moment where the audience just sits in complete silence, like wanting to get up and like chop their ears off.
Now, did they not clear him for the match? Is that what the, I guess, catalyst for this is? That he went from that where it would look like he was going into at least having one last match, and now he's a backstage interviewer. There's something disconnect. There's some kind of disconnect right here.
MJF's now injured as well, which is one of the theories as why the Kenny Omega MJF match was pushed forward several weeks. So AEW Redemption had nothing to
Dude, he's hurt, and they delayed. They had the match with him hurt.
His suggestion, so the story goes.
Okay. Well, that's, you guys sometimes have to protect the talent and the storyline from themselves. Because it would have meant a lot more if MJF, even at like 50%, he's probably still right up there with one of the best workers. But you don't want somebody going into it hurt, and then what if it's something longer term or more permanent? And he's been kind of dipping in and out doing the movies, and he was hurt a little bit. He's been kind of 50-50 with being on TV and being off over the past few years.
Mm-hmm. There's another theory is that like these three went onto a pre-tape and didn't even discuss what they were going to say. But then like the Divine Dominion were obviously rehearsed. They had the lines rehearsed for this. That was kind of completely obvious. I genuinely think that this went so badly because Mick just decided that second that he heard Bow Wow on purpose and thought it'd be funny to start barking. I think that's what happened.
That's a very real possibility. Very real possibility, but nobody's going to ever know, and Mick may not admit to that. Sometimes, maybe some of these people that come over from WWE or whatever, it's great money. I'm sure Tony Khan is paying him very well. And from whatever thing we saw with the MJF thing was like you said, this is going to be a benefit to AEW. No matter what he does, he can still have passionate promos, and he wants to wrestle that last match. So there's something to that. But then there's always this weird thing of decline. Like there's a big, strong start. Now, Aleister Black was one, remember? And then it just kind of dies off. It's really weird.
This somehow way edged out the Jacques Rougeau thing you mentioned beforehand we watched on the Patreon as far as the most awkward segment on that show. And that was awkward enough because he was there getting honoured with his family, and Ray had spoken first and everyone was happy to see him. And then Jacques started speaking and everyone booed him. And then he immediately launched into semi-heel mode while then trying to get people to chant Rougeau and ole, ole, ole. And somehow it kind of quasi got saved by the end of it. But it's like, yeah, no.
We were laughing. We were laughing because, number one, like, they booed him right off the bat. Then when he was chanting, trying to get him to chant Rougeau, I joked and said, are they chanting Bougeau? Bougeau, like booing? It really sounded like that. And then I didn't know we were going to get an iPhone tutorial in the middle of the promo, but we sure got one. And I loved it. I was like, oh man, I go to here, swipe down, hit setting. Actually, it's right here on the home screen. You can hit that button and now you have a flash. He was very detailed. I was like, man, I was a tech reviewer and Jock is doing an amazing job. But I have to say, without Rocky Romero, who, by the way, is probably one of the most underutilized people, and you mentioned that as being the worst member of the Don Callis family, with somebody so talented, it's just nuts. But Jock still has it because guess what? That big thump that you thought he hit him with a heavy hand with the slap, Jock slapped the microphone. It was such a little touch, and the people forgot about it and started cheering when Jock slapped him. But Ray did the the thing, I do this thing, like the Muda thing. Ray, like, they both look great. Ray especially looked great for being in the 70s, you said.
Yeah, at least like 71, 72, something like that.
He was great. And as a presenter, Ray did a great job for WWE. Never really got a fair shake. He did some commentary. Did a really good job.
He worked with Leslie Nielsen for that other SummerSlam, 94,
Yep.
where they were looking for The Undertaker.
Chuck Norris came out for that one, didn't he, in that show?
Survivor Series that year.
Survivor Series, where he kicked Jeff Jarrett.
Dude, you know what? Like, maybe that was like, like how Chuck Norris he wasn't quite the judge, but if Vince Vaughn had somehow been famous in 94 and say, and thank you, Chuck Norris, like out of Dodgeball, that would have been the best moment of all of our lives.
Vince doesn't understand parodies.
Hey,
you don't understand the Blonde Bitch Project. He's not going to understand that theme there.
No, yeah, I was going to say, I mean, you were the blonde Blair Witch Project would have been the parody. He was parodied. Anyway. Right, let's get to the first of 3 segments on what went wrong / right. We're going to have 2 what went wrong so far. The first one is the Young Bucks no-sell. So you can, like we do with all wrestling, you complain about a million different things. That's what wrestling fans do. We all like to sit around and a bit of a complaint. But one of the things that was picked up upon, and this is such an AEW thing, it has to be said, is the no-sell. Or, just getting a big move after big move after big move, sequence after sequence after sequence where kind of nothing means anything. But this might have been one of the most egregious of all time, and people picked up on this in a big way. So over to you, Stevie. Rather than what went wrong, what's your reaction? What is it?
Don Stevens. Look out.
Look out. Right then. Play away to your heart's content.
All right, the first 450 there.
Fine.
Puts himself in position, springboard, 450.
And
he gets right to his feet for a kick. Yeah. That would be, I think that's a no-sell. We got a no-sell here. Wow. Dude, but by the way, like I've said before about like the Superplex, Falcon's Arrow, and other things, these bumps really do hurt. So you're making it seem like I just took a 450, and I have to say, well, Ospreay hit all that.
He sold when Matt / Nick, because I can never tell the difference between the two.
He sold the actual 450 he gave.
Yes, he sold that more than what he received.
Yeah, look, he grabbed his stomach.
And then he pushed Will off.
It was the 450 that healed, that energized you. It was like a power-up. It was like in Mario, he hit the little block and the mushroom came out, and he was able to get bigger.
Do you think that the 450 is like you give one, you take one, and then you end up neutral again?
You're trying to get me to. I mean, it's a very high impact, very exciting spot. I think Cornette could probably break this down a little bit better with really naming it what everybody thinks it is. It's a choreographed stunt show. It's very impressive. But to get up here and then good Lord. You're actually the one, you got 450 splashed and you delivered the super kick. As the person who, wait a minute. What was the other? Oh, so the young buck who delivered the Canadian Destroyer is selling to his knees, as this one is the one that took a 450, got to his feet first. It's an exciting spot. I don't know why anybody should be surprised. I mean, the Young Bucks have this waterfall shotgun type either spots or the finishes, and here we are. I mean, it moved a lot faster than coming out on the boat that time. A little higher pace than that.
I want to ask you this. Is these guys, the Young Bucks especially, they've been doing this for over 20 years. Jon Moxley's been doing this for over 20 years. Will Ospreay's been doing this since he's a teenager. Maybe not 20 years, but, he's been doing this over a dozen years, I'm sure. These are all really talented wrestlers. And sometimes I just kind of think, with their combined what, 70 odd years or even 80 years in the business of knowledge and everything like that. How can they not understand the basic tenet that moves need to look like they hurt?
I have no answer for that. I think the style of the promotion is taking precedence over this, is taking priority. It's not these wrestlers in a vacuum and their talent, their psychology, their experience, their knowledge. It's let's work the quote AEW style, which is really WWE works the style too. Everybody works the style. It is exciting and it means absolutely nothing. It's impactful, exciting, and meaningless all at once. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's
But
just
isn't that
it's
pro wrestling?
you know what this is? All these spots right here, what I could say they are, this is a wrestling fan's dopamine hit. That's what it is. It's like a sugary candy, and you're getting that sugar high off these spots. But do you recall these spots? Do you say that was a moment? That was a memory? Or do you say, like I say, man, that was really cool. That was athletic. I can't do that. And I wouldn't do it. I would just learn how to have the fans. I don't know. And we're talking about, like, I don't know if we're going to talk about the what went wrong with Raquel Rodriguez and Sol Ruca, but that finish with the girls where Raquel won the Intercontinental title, that was a shotgun type finish with different people, but it made a little bit more sense and I could digest what was going on. Here, there's a camera cut from the first 450 and then the handheld here. But outside of that, there's not different things going on to kind of step up, that shotgun finish. Does that make sense?
Mm.
I got to keep asking myself that as I watch this because it's not meant to make sense. It's not meant to have psychology. It's what the Young Bucks do, and it's what people do within a Young Bucks match. In other words, this is an AEW style of a match with the Young Bucks getting their spots in.
I just think that this doesn't build new wrestling fans. You know what I mean? Because, like, if someone's watching it for the first time ever, if they spotted that, because there's so much motion going on that maybe they didn't. I'm not sure you spotted it the first time because there was so much going on. But at some point, someone's going to say, well, hang on, why didn't that hurt when that, and that hurt? You know? And then you think, well, that takes me out of it, and then they won't give it a second go.
Listen, this is going to be where, and based on the past, where I try to offer up any kind of advice, direction, guidance for especially AEW wrestlers, I've kind of given up on that in a way, in all honesty. This is their style. This is what they do. The fans who enjoy it will enjoy it. The fans who won't, just won't. Let's do the George Carlin thing. I will just sit back, admire the athleticism, and that was cool, and then move on with my life. And hopefully these guys don't feel it for 20 years from now, and are able to walk. And I'm not saying it because these moves are super dangerous, but these are super impactful moves, and they're giving it their all. I have to say that too. They're working their butts off. And don't ever think that I don't appreciate that. But it is about, you want to use a Kevin Nash term, it's more about working smart. And if you want to work a little bit like intense, that's great. But you are there to make the people believe that this is real and doesn't hurt. Here's a Cornette line. Used to be fake and people believed it hurt. Now, I have no doubt this knocked the wind out of everybody and everybody's blown up and people could be sore ribs or whatever. And nobody believes any of this mattered at all.
I don't get it. Because I just think all pro wrestling, everyone should sign a contract in every promotion to say we need to at least get the basic tenets down. A 450 splash is a finisher or a near finisher. It was Scorpio's finisher. It was Scott Steiner's finisher at one point. Or at least he did it. He did a bad version sometimes because he landed on his feet and then flopped over. Some of his early ones anyway. But like that's a finisher move. And then to just get up, like you just have to go to the next thing. I hate the logic breaks. That's what drives me crazy more than anything else. And they must know it. And I don't know why they don't care.
Well, they're on TV. They're on pay-per-view. They're getting 6 figures, if not 7 figures, guaranteed a year. They have long-term contracts. So they know more than we do, and that's fine. I just sit back and I'm not going to, they can do whatever, and I'll enjoy it as a cardio match or something like that, because this is an excellent cardio match.
You've given up though, haven't you? On trying to rationalize.
No, I haven't given up. I'm more like George Carlin. It's actually very neutral. I just, you look at it, it's cool. That's all. And if that's what you're going to hang your hat on to have people remember you as that, then that's great. I'm good with that. I have no, and the thing is, they'll pull out all the other things they pulled out before about identifying me in a certain way and making ad hominem attacks. You can do that. That's fine. You enjoy your career. You do what you do. I feel like I watched it. I'm like, that's cool. And guess what? You had to tell me that something happened in this particular spot or spots that I missed. Isn't that an example of what you're talking about?
It's because
there's so much going on. I missed it.
Yeah, I was going to say, or is it just not worth paying attention because you're just getting to the... Because you always use the phrase, the thing. Well, they did a version of the thing.
Yeah.
There's no rhyme or reason for the thing.
This is the Young Bucks thing. How many matches do you see the Young Bucks where this happens? This big shotgun, all over the place, doing that, moonsault to the out, kick the guy, moonsault to the outside, go try to hit the driver on the outside and miss it, land on your feet, double super kick to the guy, back in, try to do the right? What was it? The best bang for your buck finish. I love that when they did it back in TNA, and they probably still do it now, but how are those more impactful than the moves we just saw? Isn't that a good question?
Mm. Ethan Page can block a 619 with the ring apron.
Oh, God, I'm going to have nightmares about that. I'll probably be commentating just like my past nightmare and then get fired again. How do you block a 619 with cloth? With cloth. So I just got to put my shirt over my head and I can block it.
Was that more offensive to you than the 450 thing?
That was probably the most offensive thing I've seen in anything.
More than the Mick Foley thing. My goodness.
Well, creepy, but not offensive, whatever, but that offended me as somebody that has to watch this stuff. More than this.
Should we?
At least I got ooh out of that, and that I got ooh.
Oh, jeez. How do you explain?
My shoulders slumped when I watched it.
Do you know what? Right, it would have not been quite as bad if, with the Ethan Page thing with the cloth, is that if the cloth was fixed on something that wasn't really springy, like one of those stretched out little hook things that they.
Don't make excuses. This was the worst version. Because Fit did this with Ray before. Ray would do a baseball slide drop kick, and he'd pull the ring apron up, and Ray would land in there, and he'd beat up whoever was in the apron. Was Ethan Page going for that? Because you got to kind of think about, that's the same presentation of the spot. I don't know who came up with this what be cool thing. Yeah, it's about this. It's about this thing with the Young Bucks, but you just diverted me off to this, and you did it on purpose because that is a bridge too far. I'm like, 450s, whatever. Fish tank. Oh, the Darby through the glass. Sorry. You son of the ring apron.
Right, so next up, what went right? Now, I've got what went wrong elements here, but the actual physicality is a definite what went right. Would you say, Stevie?
Yeah, I would totally agree. We talked about that this morning. We were on the same page. Tell me before I go through this, where did you see the what went wrongs in this? Because it was very rough. I mean, if you're in this, I thought that was Angel Garza's tag team partner, Humberto. He looks like, for a second, I thought, he's a big dude. Now I was just are they literally putting roster members as extras?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the what went wrong is, why is he beating up 10 police officers with no repercussions for the second time in 3 weeks? It's one thing to do it to local security, which is a joke, but then do it to police officers. You really have to suspend your disbelief that one of them isn't going to shoot him.
Well, also, let's think about that. That is definitely what went wrong, by the way. I was just joking because I was like, are they really cutting costs and making roster members the extras? We're almost there, aren't we, with TKO? But what I see here is, like what you just said, these cops aren't trying to arrest him, aren't trying to get him to the ground, aren't doing, he attacks them first. Am I remembering this right?
Yeah. After you.
Yeah.
What went?
Is he watching the body cam videos on YouTube like my wife and myself, like Midway Safety or
Oh, dude, I do
Red
those
File?
all the time. Do you get?
Oh, it's great.
I
Dude,
love
they
some of
get
those.
like
but
a
I've
million
watched
views
so
in
many
12
documentaries on Netflix recently, like the true crime stuff. I just
Oh.
watched The Crash, the toxic relationship. There's some really good ones out there at the moment.
But dude, like I was like looking at that, going, "Hey, I could be a faceless channel and just voice it over," and then the resisting arrest comes around. Dude, they get like I looked, it was like 82,000 views in an hour for Midwest Safety, and it was like it's awesome.
Dude, it's serial killer captured after 40 years. This is the moment they were arrested.
And they're
works on
shaking
me.
hands, opening the door, and everything.
They're always
Oh, yeah.
smiling as well. Hey, you got me. Anyway, these coppers couldn't catch a cold. Let
Well,
alone
after everything Femi did to him, according to Midwest Safety in these body cam videos, most of the charges will be dropped and he's just going to get probation anyway. So there you go. Somebody hits 5 houses on a high-speed chase, and then they just get like resisting without violence. But you know what's funny about this? This is where WWE is going to WWE, because you just asked the question of, what did they even do? They're just there for some reason in the cage, and they're locked in a cage, and they're not trying to arrest this guy for anything. And that's one thing right there. Think about the Steve Austin segment where my buddy Dan McDevitt, that runs MCW, was one of the cops in the Madison Square Garden during that Raw where they arrested Steve for stunning Vince, where Vince sold, is that the one where he did the worst sell of the stunner?
That was in
where he looked
Madison
like a
Square
fish
Garden.
out of water.
I'm not sure was he arrested on that one? I'm not sure he was arrested on that one. He was arrested on a later one. Maybe it's when he stunned him the second time.
I'm not
My
sure, but I
memory's
remember
failing me
Vince was
there.
like this.
I love that. I don't care who says anything.
Well,
I
I
thought
just-
it was great.
No, well, we can agree to disagree on that one.
Oh, I loved it.
You know, he is a stunner. I guess that if you smash me over the head with the sledgehammer, it's a stunner. But this isn't as obvious as to what these cops did to provoke Femi. This is just, you know, it'd be cool. Let's attack the cops because you're a rogue element or whatever. What did you think about the promo, by the way? I thought the promo was so paint by numbers.
Yep. Oh, dude, WWE's
I'm not
full of
trapped
paint by
with
numbers.
you. You're trapped with me. I was a little sassy with that one. Sorry. All right, you want to play this finally?
Yeah, Obafemi versus 8 strippergrams. Go ahead. This is what went right segment as well.
You're saying these are like the indie Chippendales right here? Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying? Magic Mike lost all the magic.
Magic marks.
Oh,
Just
jeez.
wrestling. The first thing is that the cameraman doesn't
He
catch
even
it.
hit the cameraman with a person. Which, you know what? That was the best part, wasn't it? That was body cam violence right
But
there.
I
could
love that.
appreciate-
I hate the overproduced, never get the cameraman in the shot. Can I get a clean shot, guys, as you always say with Vince? I love that when it just looks a bit more chaotic.
Yeah, I would love it if the thing felt like the body cam's fall on the ground and they're still recording it and it's still there. All right, let's see what he does. I would say this: at least they're not feeding like kung fu fighting. They're crowding this dude and they're paying the price for it. Oh, that was what was that? Did you see that? Let's get slow motion. All right, he didn't, but it looked like he just like hit him.
It was a good punch.
It was a good punch.
The kick at the end is amazing.
This here could be very dangerous. This guy took it up here, but what if you take a choke slam bump and you got a walkie-talkie or something back there? That's pretty scary, but he took a great bump. Here we go. What went right?
Woof.
You know why? We're going to
Yeah.
start right there. Obafemi, this is no matter what level the person's on. Am I wrong that somebody else would be like, I'm just going to drive you down because this is all about me. This is my moment, and I got to hit you with the finish. Sorry, brother. That's the way it used to be. Like, I got to do the move. But Obafemi just said, okay, well, we're just going to do it over again, and I'm going to sit out with you. That's what the business is all about. Because you know what they can do? They can just put in the package right here doing this as a quick cut with the punches, with the choke slam, with everything. I have to say, let's see what Obafemi looks like here.
Just watch the kick. He really lumps this one in.
That was the... He did give him a little bit of a message there. That's the same guy to say you messed it up. So, but the fact is, I'd rather take a stiff kick to the ribs than get dropped on my head and break my neck. So that's fine with me. We all mess up. I mean, it happens, but I'm glad Obafemi, but he's not perfect. He's fired up. He's like, this is the big go home show. I'll show you. And that's it. He showed him.
Okay, so that's what went right. Obafemi basically saved a man's life, which he really did, if you think about it, or potentially he did anyway. He really did a good job of kind of... Is that even like being a ring general in that sense?
No, that's still having your humanity and not getting your stuff in, brother, and not saying everything needs... How many one wrongs have we done where it's like, why... He's hurt. Why are you going on? You don't have to go to the finish. That's the biggest indictment, isn't it? Like you just get those blinders on and you say, I always use the example of that Alex Reynolds in AEW in the middle of the ring, completely out, and they just drag him over the dude could have a broken neck, but you're dragging him around the ring. And there's been other times where
OVW with the referee.
Yeah, the referee, my goodness. There were some people that defended that, and they're like, why don't you say, what aboutism? What about this and what about that? We made everybody upset and mad. So I'm glad to see Obafemi literally just care about another life and know that the push to SummerSlam is not going to be affected. They're going to edit that out. And when they do the package before the match, that powerbomb will be in there, but not the screw up. Or maybe with the cutbacks, it will be in there. And they'll leave the screw up in and take out the good one.
Here's the other thing, is that like you said it was like a paint by numbers, talking back and forth kind of thing. Dutch has been saying this a bit recently. It's like, man, am I sick of Paul Heyman. Dutch is just not into Paul Heyman these days. He just said he's run his course. It's the same thing over and over again, which I understand. And he's going to have to do something majorly different, especially when Brock leaves, supposedly, after SummerSlam. But also with the segment, you had to turn your brain off a couple of times. One, that Obafemi is assaulting 8 police officers. And this isn't the first time. A few weeks ago, he did it beforehand. And they had to retcon a story claiming that Obafemi knew that these weren't real police officers. Paul Heyman had just hired them to dress up, like, with a little sheriff's badge out the cereal box.
So basically, they all committed felonies of impersonating a law enforcement officer. Yeah. And Paul Heyman's an accessory and basically a conspirator and all that. And then, speaking of Paul, like, what has Paul done outside of the thing? Paul Heyman does the thing, right? That's all he does.
Then there was the fact that, the Hell in a Cell had been dropped down. It'd been lowered down before the show, after the show had started. So we saw it up and it was coming down, and then, Adam Pearce and Triple H are there. And then Brock Lesnar locks Obafemi in the cage with the police officers, whether they're real or not, who knows? Who could say? Adam Pearce and Triple H. And then he's like, haha, I've got you. You can't get out of there. There are two things. One, how many wrestlers, strong wrestlers, have we seen just rip the door off the hinges? Many.
That's what I thought was going to happen, didn't you?
Yeah. And then Oba just doesn't. And two, Triple H is right there, and Adam Pearce can't say, somebody in the back, just raise the Hell in a Cell, please, so we can get this way.
Oh, the Ole Anderson cage. Raise the cage, right?
Yeah. Dude, they did that on King of the Ring 98. Yeah, they did it. King of the Ring 98, where, the Mankind Undertaker Hell in a Cell, the famous one. Then the next match was Kane and Austin for the title, which Kane won. And the Hell in a Cell keeps coming up and down all the way through it. And I don't know if they ever resolved who was the person who did that. But it's not exactly like we don't all know there's just somebody in the back with a lever, you know?
Do you remember the Seth Rollins one where it had the little spike or something on the edge of the bottom? And he literally was laying underneath the cage selling and he had to roll. It wasn't like them covering it, like, oh, the cage is gonna land on him. He was selling and the cage started coming down. I forget what it was. It was a while back.
Do you know? I don't.
It had like a thing on it that looked like it could impale him. And he barely got out of the way.
Okay. If anyone can tell us what that was, please let us know in the comments.
I don't know if it's a Mandela effect, but I wish there was a Mandela effect where Paul Heyman was effective, as Dutch would say.
Do you think Dutch is fair on that? I mean,
Yes.
Genuinely.
Genuinely, because if somebody examines the nuance and the detail of this business and looks at everything and is paid to watch it and says, no matter what, you're getting paid to watch it, right? But even you're saying, I'm just sick of seeing this, dude. What do you think a casual fan? Like I talked about the pre-tape ease. Paul Heyman does the same exact sing-along stuff for Brock, other people. Is he a heel or what is he? And then just a weird thing. It has run its course. The only thing that could save him is putting the hat and the trench coat back on and the media passes.
I think he's like when he was a manager back in the day, he had the phone, he used to hit people over the head, he was effective kind of thing. He does nothing in matches, pretty much. Am I right? I don't even remember him maybe...
Once in a while.
Once in a while he'll grab the foot or maybe stand on the apron. But
or he gets beat up.
Yeah, he gets beat up.
We're due for him to get beat up again every quarter or 6 months.
I mean, every year he rubs his eyes really hard and has red eyes and looks like he hasn't slept in a week, which is good. But also... like, apart from basically being Flavor Flav, he's kind of just the hype man. Whereas I miss the managers that get involved all the time. You know, Logan Paul does more as a kind of second or third, as whatever you want to call him.
Yeah, I have no answer for that. I mean, Paul's going to be there until Paul's gone, I guess. And I know he has something to do with backstage creative. I don't know to what degree, but that's what it is, isn't it? I'd say before, there's always rehashing in pro wrestling, but it's usually from decades earlier, from the old Memphis days with Dutch or Cousin Bertha or whatever, who is Dutch Mantel. I don't care what anybody says. I just for the dress and the wig alone, I have experience and I know the body.
I was going to say, that's not even a wig for Dutch. He had the mullet back then.
Oh, that's true.
Anyway, right, okay.
What was the other one? What was the other one where he was driving in the truck or whatever and he had the mask on?
Dude, that's Texas Dirt from Dirt, Texas.
Texas Dirt from Dirt, Texas.
And he's doing the same voice. Anyway, Dutch will not admit he's Cousin Bertha. If you don't know what we're talking about, Storytime with Dutch Mantel. It's the latest episode 185, and it's the first item on the show. Just watch it. You tell me if you think it's Dutch or not. He insists it's not because he doesn't remember it. Anyway, we're going to do one more segment, and this kind of ends up being a bit of a viral moment, not for the best of reasons, I guess. Val Venis, Sean Morley, has, I guess, come out of retirement. He has done bits of wrestling on indies. I think the last one that I saw was 2023. He came out in the old Val Venis trunks, the whole bit, did the pose, the towel and everything. The guy's in his late 50s. He doesn't look as good as he did 25 years ago. I think that's kind of the point we're trying to make here, obviously. And you know, Val Venis, Sean Morley, is the person kind of he's at the very least rubbed some people the wrong way. So there's some glee coming into this for a lot of people as well. But I want to get your thoughts on it. You've got the video. And it's Val Venis coming back on an indie show in 2026. Over to you, Stevie.
All right. Thank you, James. And hey, yeah, we did have a discussion before. We actually even did the pre-show where we were going back and forth with the show notes. And you had asked me, we want to cover this, but if you're not comfortable because you and Val have a past, used to be coworkers and friends. I haven't spoken to Val in many years, but hopefully he's doing okay. You know, he comes out of retirement to do this. And I think I've talked about this a few times. And I am just as much, if not harder on myself, physicality-wise, build-wise, physique, aesthetic-wise. James knows that better than anyone except for my wife, that I have, need to be hyper accountable for this and be hyper aware.
Do you get the body dysmorphia thing, do you think?
I have body dysmorphia, yes I do, but I know I look like crap too. And I know that I even was looking for shirts with sleeves because I'm like, I'm really, really self-conscious and downright. I'm very blessed in a way because with the spine infection, herniated disc, just being able to work out consistently and feel better and have somewhat of a physique, I feel very fortunate that I can even walk, much less do that. But at the same time, my ego and pride gets in the way, but not in a bad way in this, because I've always said it, even before we had this show, before the wrestling analysis, even like before I started doing stuff with Ben and Russo, that I was there for 11 years. If I have to wear a t-shirt when I'm wrestling, and I know I wear a half shirt, I'm talking about a full t-shirt. A half shirt's even worse because I don't want to be skinny fat. But if I have to wear a t-shirt or cover up in any way, form, or fashion, then I shouldn't be in the ring. For me, that's a good litmus test to keep me honest, to not gaslight myself into believing, yeah, but I just take so much pride of looking mostly like what I looked like in the 8x10s. I've never been a big guy. I've been very lean at times, but I don't want to be that like, oh, he used to be, or he was, and I think with our show, we're very much in that. I'm giving us all this as a precursor and context to look at Val and say, as a fellow worker, what are you doing? What are the reasons for coming out of retirement? Are you okay? And obviously, and Val did a couple shoot interviews a while ago where he leaned out and lost weight intentionally to do like a marathon or some type of thing that required you not to carry all that body weight. And obviously, as we get older, we don't want to be too fit. And he was all the way up to like 270, I think, at one point. Your joints can't handle that. But also, your joints can't handle getting in the ring and taking bumps in your mid to late 50s. So what say you, James? I have enough heat with Val now.
Well, really, the question is, let's watch the video. Play the video.
All right, I'm putting it on right now.
There's no audio, by the way. In fairness, Val looks like he's having a lot of fun.
Yeah,
if nothing else. Maybe it's just like, I just don't care. I mean, you know what I mean? He just looks like he's an older guy who's going to the swimming baths. But also, Val used to be was a real body guy as well, and I think, is that the kind of trapping when you're a body guy in your 30s and then you don't have the body anymore in your 50s, but you still want to get in the ring? And kind of like, well, what do you wear? Do you wear the same stuff like Val's doing here? Where he obviously doesn't look anywhere near the same as he did in his 30s? Do you modify your out? You know, because you always talk about the t-shirt thing. As you said before, if you've got to wear a t-shirt, then you wouldn't do it.
Yeah, there's also the thing, like later on when I was basically almost done with my career, I switched to long pants because it was incredibly difficult to train legs like I used to. And my lower back, my posterior chain wasn't really cooperating after my spine shifted laterally from taking a bump on the outside at WrestleCon in New Orleans. I got thrown out of the ring. I couldn't grab the middle rope and I landed right on my hip and it shifted my entire. So after that, it was hard to do any kind of squats, or deadlifting was pretty much almost out of the question. And those build up your legs pretty good. So I was getting like, my legs weren't completely skinny and they've never been big, but I switched over to long black pants. And even then I was like, my body started to get soft because I couldn't train my lower body enough, and everything follows that. There's a lot to think about with that. So even in that regard, just maybe subconsciously, when you see somebody, say Val switched from trunks to long pants, what would be your first thing on the indies? Well, his legs don't look well. He's covering up a bit. Same thing with the t-shirt, right? There's really no escaping it. It's either you go out there like Val went out there, you have fun, and guess what? Scott Hall used to say, everybody's physique is eventually going to deteriorate. I'm paraphrasing it. But if you still have psychology, you know how to work, you have poise, you have presence, and Val has all those, right? He can work, he has poise, presence, he's still having fun. He still feels a bit larger than life, although it's obviously in some indie high school or big hotel ballroom, whatever it might be. I would just not go in the ring, and I haven't. And my back injury has kept me honest. I've had the temptation. But if I look in the mirror, dude, and people can be like, man, you're too hard. I look in the mirror outside of the fortune and the charmed life that I live right now, to be able to still walk after a spine infection, still be fighting a very serious lower back issue. I look in the mirror and I'm ashamed of the way I look. I would never get in the ring. I don't even want to go to conventions and sign for a multitude of reasons. But one of the top 3 reasons is, if not the number one, I don't feel I do justice to the 8x10 with the way I look. Face-wise, I probably look somewhat the same. Body-wise, I'm ashamed of the way I look, and that keeps me from even entertaining something like this.
I mean, do you pass judgment on Val, or would you pass judgment on Ric Flair, who wears a top, or, you know, people who are just older who keep on doing it? You know, because like
the Flair thing's a totally different thing. There's 55 different reasons before you get to the physique and wearing a shirt.
There's 1,000 ways to die in the West, and Ric Flair, you know, I understand that, you know,
Ric Flair picked 1,001.
Yeah. But the thing, you know, but there's a lot of guys from like the 80s and 90s who are still on the indies having fun. Some people just need the money as well, of course, or just don't have anything else to fall back on. But there are also a lot of guys, you know, they might wear the tights and then they'll wear the t-shirt and whatnot.
I mean,
do you pass judgment on them? Is that
no, and please don't. I pass judgment on myself. I'm hyper accountable to myself, and all I can do is use my feelings, my perspective to say this. Please, nobody out there, especially Val, who I have respect for as a fellow worker for what he's done and now what he's trying to do coming out of retirement. So I have all the respect in the world for him to do that. So I'm not judging Val or anything like that. As a matter of fact, I was on indies with the Sheik, the Iron Sheik, and the Sheik early on, actually Sabu's uncle. I was watching Tito Santana in his 50s, maybe even, I don't know how old he was definitely in his 50s, working indies, working matches. Nikolai Volkov was in his late 60s, working for Maryland Championship Wrestling. So I've seen play. Well, Snook is a famous example in the indies too. He was doing it to where he would do the Superfly splash at first from the second rope, then the bottom rope, and then he would just stand there and jump in the air and splash you right there from the standing position. But guess what? He might have needed the money, but he was having fun. The fans still had that nostalgia, still got autographs, pictures. There's still a value in that. You know, Val's in a little bit, like you said earlier, he hinted, he's in a little bit different space than being the nostalgia type of feel-good guy on the indies. He still has other things that are polarizing, right? With what he's commented on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I'm speaking strictly from the wrestling sense for what I'm looking at here.
Yeah,
but there's more to it with Val.
Yeah, there's definitely more to it with Val because he's very outspoken about a number of different issues that obviously a lot of people would deem very controversial. I'm putting that incredibly politely as well. So obviously he's going to get it more than most people. That being said, I mean, if Val is going to go out there, would you just say, well, you might as well stay in the trunks because people remember you as the trunks, or would you say, well, look, you obviously don't have the body anymore. You need to modify the look if you're going to do it.
No, we're looking in a vacuum of pro wrestling and larger-than-life builds and airport tests and all that stuff. Val doesn't look terrible. I mean, compared to 270 and probably, you know what, to the gills, back in the day.
He used to work out twice a day. He used to work out in the mornings and then after the shows in the gym. He was a freak for working out. You too?
I was right there.
All right.
He wasn't going to outdo me.
Did you work out with Val?
Not with him, but there were times where he was at the gym or we decided we were going to meet there or whatever. Yeah, but when he said that, I was like, not on my watch, brother. So to my own detriment, it's my own adrenal fatigue that I'm still suffering from. But no, I would say, you know what I'd say to Val? Exactly when I'm looking at this, go out there with the trunks. And we're fleshing this out as we're looking, because what are you going to do? You're it's not what people remember. Now people might go, he's a lot smaller, he's skinnier, but I guarantee you once Val starts working, if his work is still up, if his psychology is still on point, that all dissolves away. There's plenty of people that have awful physiques that you look at Dusty Rhodes. He could talk people into a building. When you're in the ring and seeing him sell, you're not looking at like a beached whale or a turtle on its back. Get up, Dusty, right? He's selling. So as long as he can work, and as a fellow human being, I know people feel a certain way about him. I just don't want him to get hurt to a point where it's permanent. And that has a very good chance of happening in your late 50s. Not to mention, get checked out to see if you have a heart issue or another problem. There's lots of things. If you're not going to the doctor and they're not catching, something bad could happen in the ring.
Okay, we're going to end it there, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be back.
Like my friendship with Val might have just ended.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I think that was very, very fair. A lot of people are saying a lot worse. So, what do you want?
I'm not going to judge anybody for doing what they want to do. If he loves to do it, and if he gets that high out of it, and I told you, I'm not exclusive away from the temptation once in a while. We joke about it, but I am kept honest by the mirror and by most of my medical reports.
Yeah, okay, but you said that like 2-3 times, though, like being kept honest. So is there inherently some kind of dishonesty with other people, you think, if they're not looking in cosmetic enough shape to do this kind of thing, but then still wear the trunks? Should they, should they modify their look once again? But you keep using the word honest.
Well, I would look at it this. I would say Val, although the other things he uses his platform and voice for is very polarizing, you can still scratch that itch and get that dopamine hit, that high, in other ways. This show does it for me. This is my outlet. I have fun. I get to talk freely. That proves me on WWE Radio, by the way. So, but at the same time, I don't worry. Aesthetically, in looking at this, you can say embarrassing. You should be embarrassed to look like that or anything. But at the same time, if you're not working out as much as you can, and I have no way to judge it, by the way, Val could be 10 times healthier than when he was doing all the stuff that made him 270. He could feel the best he's ever felt. He could have cardio for days because he did that marathon thing. What I'm worried about is what's going on internally, that this adrenaline, like we talked about with Flair, 2 heart attacks in the ring in his last match. We talked about Mick. What's it going to be like to have just full on adrenaline rush on your heart and your body? Now you got to take bumps. Now, did Val train like Mick did and get a concussion during training? Or is he just going in the ring cold? Do you see the questions I'm asking? These are life-threatening questions I'm asking. Not, dude, he still has bigger arms to me, by the way. So there we go. Who am I to talk? Shut up, you skinny rail. I mean, there's people out there like, I told you before, we joked that people thought I had
people out there with pinkies bigger than your neck. You're going to be a fly on the wall in a year.
And Val's one of those. Val, make your rebuttal video. Let's have the internet beef, brother. But dude, I'm looking. You got me, brother. Okay,
dude, that's what I say. You're going to be a fly on the wall in a year, brother. Because you're in your mid-20s, you're English.
We're effing punks.
Yeah, you're punk. You're not as sick as Ric Flair.
If anything, well, I can debate that. But if anything with this, Ric Flair is the gift that gave us the top-selling pro wrestling tees t-shirt, Peanut Shell, coming very soon.
In an alternative universe. Okay, then let's wrap it up. We're going to be talking about, of course, SummerSlam next week. It's not going to be. This is because of me. I'm away on the weekend. My wife booked it. What can I tell you? So I'm unavailable this weekend, but we're going to be doing on the usual time. You know what we might do, Stevie, is record it on Tuesday usual, then we'll try and get out a day early so the SummerSlam review is fresh. And then at least we've got Raw to go on as well. But that's going to be a bumper episode. Goodness me. So yeah, 2 nights of SummerSlam, God help us, as well as Raw and everything else going on. So we'll see you next Wednesday. I'm going to say. I'll see if Chris is up to editing it. I'll see.
Yeah,
if
that's
we can
right.
do
Get
it.
that coffee pot ready, Chris. We're ready to go.
Yeah, man. We'll do our best. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. We're out normally every Thursday. Tomorrow, next week, I think it's going to be Wednesday. We'll see what we do. Might even be earlier if and somehow can get back earlier. I don't know. But that's pretty much it. So it's over to Stevie to take us out and thank everybody, especially the Patreon supporters.
Well, thank you very much, James, and thank you, everybody out there. James is going away, but here, this introverted cat lover will be just sitting here waiting for the call from James Romero. So, but we won't be waiting for any other calls because they're not coming, and that's fine. We love it here, and we love each and every one of you for subscribing.
Should we start doing our Sirius XM channel? What if we just do it all Stevie all the time?
All Stevie, all night, all... Oh my God, I got... All Stevie, all night, nothing but XM Sirius.
Stevie
Sirius XM.
After Dark.
Don't enjoy the show. See, that's reverse psychology right there for you, buddy. So we don't use that here too much. But thank you very much to everybody here on YouTube, as well as patreon.com/Stevie Richards. Watch alongs every Monday that we will forget by Tuesday morning. It's guaranteed. So tune in for the quiz in segment 1 every week on the full episodes. And also show notes on Tuesday morning. And of course, another morning, Thursday morning, is the show before the show, the pre-show, where James and I talk usually about everything but wrestling, but people seem to like that. Thank you so much for watching episode 108 of the Stevie Richards Show. See you next week for the SummerSlam Raw review special, episode 109. I am grimacing as much as James. Ha ha.